in closed session to discuss the item appearing on tonight's agenda. With respect to the single item appearing on tonight's successor agency closed session agenda, the successor agency received an update from the agency's negotiators. Direction was given, but no final action was taken. This concludes my report from closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's an objection by the successor agency, I will now adjourn the closed session meeting of the Bell Garden Successor Agency to the Community Development Commission at 6:10. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 27, 2022, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Garden Successor Agency to the Community Development Commission. The meeting will now come to order at 6:10. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, please be advised that members of the Bell Garden Successor Agency may participate in today's meeting telephonically. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any agency member should have a conflict of interest, virtually, please leave the room by turning off video and muting yourself. You may still continue listening to the meeting. Tonight's invocation will be given by Pastor Leal, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Chief Fairfield.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councilmen and councilwomen, our chief, and all the rest of the staff. It's always a blessing to be with you. Let us bow our heads and remember that as we pray, we come into the presence of God. Father, we want to thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity that you give me to present our leaders. Father, your word says that if we seek you, we should find you. And we seek you for wisdom and for grace and for guidance. May you be with our leaders. May you guide them. That everything that they do and every decision they take will be, Father, just led by your grace. May this meeting be a blessing for all of our leaders and for our city. And for our country also, Father, we ask for your blessings upon our country and every community, Father. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Can we say amen?
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agency Secretary, will you please call the roll of the successor agency?
Yes, Chair. Agency members Barcena,
Present.
Cortez,
Present.
Flores,
Present.
Vice Chair Chavez,
Present.
and Chair Polito.
Present. We will now move to the first item on the agenda. Public participation is now open. Agency Secretary, will you please announce the instructions for public participation?
Yes, Chair. We will now move to the first. There are 0 written comments for this item, but we'll go ahead and give the public opportunity to speak on the items listed on the regular successor agency meeting agenda. Please state your name before the record, before addressing your comments to the chair and agency members. Each speaker and written comment is limited to 3 minutes. Written comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by pressing *9. When instructed, press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. I'll begin with the first speakers, and it looks like nobody has raised their hands. So that concludes public comment.
If there is no objection by the agency members, I will close public participation. We will now move to consent calendar. Does any member of the agency wish to pull an item for separate discussion? I will now call for a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar.
Moved Cortez.
Is there a second? I will second. Agency Secretary. Agency Secretary, will you please conduct roll call vote?
Yes, Chair. Agency members Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chavez,
Yes.
and Chair Polito.
Yes. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 3?
Yes, thank you, Agency Chair. This item will need to be tabled by staff for additional efforts. Thank you, Chair.
We will now move to public participation for non-agenda items. Public participation is now open. Agency Secretary, are there any speakers?
We have no written comments which were submitted. We'll go ahead and give the public the opportunity to speak on the successor agency meeting agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the chair and agency members. Each speaker and written comment is limited to 3 minutes. Written comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so by pressing *9. When instructed, press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature. Nobody has raised their hands, so that concludes public comment.
If there is no objection by the City Council, we'll close public participation. Does any agency member wish to comment? If there is no objection by the successor agency, I will adjourn successor agency meeting at 6:15 and call to order the City Council meeting. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 27, 2022, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Gardens City Council. The meeting will now come to order at 6:16. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, please be advised that members of the Bell Gardens City Council may participate in today's meeting telephonically. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any City Council member should have a conflict of interest, virtually please leave the room by turning off video and muting yourself. You may still continue listening to the meeting. City Clerk, will you please call the roll of the City Council?
Yes, Mayor. Council members Barcena,
Present.
Cortez,
Present.
Flores. 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 Mayor Pro Tem Chavez
Present.
and Mayor Polito.
Present.
I'm present. I'm having, it's breaking up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the presentation. City Manager, will you please introduce today's presentations?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Polito. The next item is a small business assistant grant for the business that's LNC Wireless. The business owner is Cynthia Roca. And what we have a staff member here, Mona Mosaeb. She's a new associate planner. She's here with the large check, so I will turn the presentation over to Mona.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. As you know, the COVID-19 CDBG and CDBG-CD Small Business Assistance Program facilitated economic development by providing credit, grants, and other forms of financial support. This evening, we have Ms. Rocha with us. We would like to recognize Ms. Rocha as a recipient of this program. And we were wondering if she has anything that she would like to share with us. Ms. Rocha, is there anything that you would like to share with us?
I would just like to say thank you for the grant that my establishment received. Times have been really rough for all businesses, and I understand that I'm not the only one struggling, but I feel really honored that the city was able to step up for my small business, and I hope other businesses get, and I Sorry. And I hope other businesses also get the help that we need. And just thank you for sorry, it keeps cutting off. And just thank you for taking my business into consideration. It really helped me with all the rent that was past due and also all the bills that we had. So thank you so much to the city.
Any comments from my colleagues?
Ms. Rocha, thank you so much for logging on today and being with us during this meeting. I hope that these monies help you in your business. And just thank you for having a business and operating in our city. And if there's anything else that we can do for you, we're going to try to help as much as possible. But it was a pleasure seeing you, at least virtually. And hopefully we'll get to visit your business soon.
Yeah, you guys are all welcome to stop by our business. We do cell phone repairs. We do iPad repairs. We sell all kinds of accessories for phones. And also I do want to take the time to also thank a couple of I know a lot of the cops and the firefighters come and visit my store, and they're daily consuming from our business. So thank you, because I know there's other stores that you guys can consume from, and you guys always think about us. So thank you so much.
If there's no one else, I would like to say congratulations, Ms. Rocha, and thank you for being part of our community. We're glad we're able to help you. I also want to pose a question to the director. Where are we in this process of helping our residents? Is there still more opportunities out there for businesses? And what can residents do in case they're watching right now and they're interested?
Councilman Barcena and Mayor and members of the City Council, we've had this program going on for a little over a year now. We started off with a small business assistance grant. We closed that one, and we started another small business assistance grant that went from $3,000 to $10,000. We've had more than 50 businesses now participate and take advantage of getting the grant, which was made possible through the CDBG allocation that we received through the federal government. It was called the CDBG Coronavirus Fund. And this is actually the last business that had applied. The program is going to be closed. The funds have been exhausted. So we're so glad that Ms. Rocha was able to apply, but the business grant will be closing. Fortunately, we were able to take advantage of all the funds, and in the future, if more funds become available, we will reestablish another grant opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Romo, for clarifying. So I guess for Ms. Rocha, you are extremely lucky. You're the final recipient of the grant. So once again, congratulations for that. And thank you guys for clarifying.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for making me part of it.
Next presentation.
Yes, thanks again, Ms. Rocha. The next presentation is by the Los Angeles Community College District. This is a local advocacy outreach program that they have. We were contacted by Mr. Robert Orteaga, and we're joined today by the leadership of this group, Dr. Alberto Roman, Mr. Arenas, Vice President, Dr. Duenas, also Vice President, Ms. Mayorga, Dean. They have a presentation that they're going to go through. And just to kind of cover, being a person that's not from the Southeast LA, I know what ELAC is. I'm a community college graduate myself from San Bernardino Valley College. I know that the impact that these community colleges personally throughout California have on people, especially in socioeconomically disadvantaged communities. And being here in the Southeast for the last 3 years, I can't tell you how many employees, residents that have got their careers going and their education through ELAC. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Roman, unless Mr. Orteaga has anything to say in advance.
No, I don't, but thank you, the City of Bell Gardens. I want to thank Trustee David Vela and Mayor Polito for really making this happen, along with you, City Manager O'Kelly. We appreciate that, and I want to just introduce President Roman from East LA College.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Pulido, Mayor Pro Tem Chavez, esteemed council members, Barcena, Cortez, and Flores, and members of our administration, Mr. O'Kelly, and of course, our community. Has been stated, my name is Alberto Roman. I'm the president of East Los Angeles College. It's just an honor for us to join you this evening to provide a short presentation about our college. With me today, as been stated, we have Vice President of Instructional Services, Ruben Arenas. Also with us is Vice President of Student Services, Dr. Miguel Dueñas, and our Dean of the Southgate Educational Center, Dean Erica Mayorga. Next slide, please. By way of introduction and history, for those of you that know a little bit about ELAC and some of you that may not, let me share that East Los Angeles College has now been in existence for about 77 years. We got our start as part of LAUSD at Garfield High School in 1945, and now we're at a point where we have two locations, our Monterey Park campus, and of course our Southgate Educational Center. We do have several satellites throughout our service area, and we're serving approximately about 25,000 students per semester and approximately about 35,000 students per year. East Los Angeles College has grown to be one of the largest community colleges in the state of California, and also the largest within the Los Angeles Community College District. ELAC proudly serves the communities of Southeast, and of course, we are proud to serve the residents of Bell Gardens, and we are the community college that serves the largest number of Latina and Latino students in the nation year after year. Next slide, please. You know, we're very clear on our mission. We firmly believe that education is the greatest determinant for social mobility and really the pathway for breaking intergenerational poverty within our communities. And our goal is simple. Our goal is to ensure that every single student achieves their full potential and achieves academic success, and then they come back and help uplift their communities and their families. That is the full cycle that we see, and it's evident through many of our students that come back, live in our communities and contribute in a very positive way to the Southeast as well as the entire service area of ELAC. Next slide, please. Who do we serve? Well, you can see that from the data there, that 3 out of 4 students at ELAC are indeed Latino. We have 11% or so of AAPI, as well as 3% Black, with about 5% white. The data also shows that over 90% of our students are indeed students of color, and they come from our local communities, including the city of Bell Gardens. 61% of our students are female, and about half of our students are between the ages of 18 to 24. However, it's important to note that you can also see that we have a large percentage of what we refer to as adult learners, students who perhaps were in the workforce and decided to come back and earn a degree, tool up, gain more skills, or earn a CTE certificate. You know, our students range from 16 years of age to students in their 70s. In fact, we had a student that was over 70 just graduate a couple of weeks ago from our college. So we're very proud to serve all students, regardless of their age, gender, ethnicity, or zip code. Next slide, please. Like most colleges, ELAC has lost some enrollment during the thick of the pandemic. But you can see we are beginning to recover enrollment in particular areas, specifically our dual enrollment program throughout the college, and our short-term courses during the summer and the winter are really picking up. Our classes are currently offered at approximately 50% online and 50% in person. And this has really allowed us to provide adequate options to best serve the needs of our students, especially for those with families and with jobs. Our class offerings provide many options. And again, as stated, we offer options both in person and online. Next slide, please. And despite enrollment losses, there's a lot of success stories and a lot to be proud of. In the last 2 years, we've had 4 Ken Cook Scholarship recipients. This is one of the most prestigious scholarships to receive. Only about 100 students are selected nationwide, and students do receive
approximately $50,000 per year to attend their university of choice. There is no other community college within the region that has had 4 recipients of the scholarship in the last 2 years, and we're very proud of that. And also you can see that we have a very high acceptance rate to UCs as well as CSUs. And equally important, as you can see, we are awarding over 4,000 associate degrees per year and close to 2,500 certificates. These numbers continue to increase every year for our college. Next slide, please. Let me turn this over now to Vice President Arenas for the next slide.
Thank you, Dr. Roman. Because of ELAC's deeply rooted mission of access and equity, we offer flexible schedules really to meet students where they're at and how they learn. Our schedules are really designed to meet the needs of working, part-time, full-time students. So running the gamut from what you'd call traditional student to truly non-traditional students. We still do have a very large in-person program, which includes evenings, Friday and Saturday options. We offer various flavors of fully online at this point, from what we'd call asynchronous, where students can learn really at their own pace each week, to the synchronous, where students would learn via live feed, live video with their instructors, to mixes of those two. We offer hybrid courses where students can come both in person and online. And I do want to note we offer a variety of short-term courses ranging from 5 weeks to 12 weeks. Our usual semester is 16 weeks. And starting in fall 2022 semester, we're going to be piloting what's called High Flex, which will give students the option of attending either in person or online at their own convenience. So you can conceivably come, a few days a week in person if you want, a few days a week online or fully in person. And this will be available both at the Monterey Park and Southgate campuses. Next slide, please. East Los Angeles College, we offer hundreds of programs from traditional degree programs, AA and AS, for example, to programs designed specifically for transfer. Listed on this slide are some of our more popular programs: general studies, psychology, administrative justice, sociology, and so on. But we run the gamut: nursing, allied health, mathematics, computer science, physics, chemistry, biotechnology, and so on and so forth. Our programs, the traditional programs generally are 2-year programs, but we have programs that can be completed in as little as 1 semester, such as our biotechnology program, or A+ certification program, and some of our medical assisting programs are 1-semester programs. But we offer this full gamut, again, including certifications. Many of our certifications are for law enforcement and firefighters, but we also have public health and various other medical and child development areas. Next slide, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Miguel Dueñas, and hearing this great presentation, one might ask, how can I attend this college? Where is this located? So this is how you start. You come down to our campus, online, virtual, in person, and you come in with our admissions office to get support. Financial assistance, go to financial aid. And you had the hours there as to guide you the best time to come in. Also counseling, to be able to guide you to the wonderful programs that VP Arenas just mentioned. What might be the right fit for you? Also, college promise, 2 years free for anyone. You don't have to be a high school graduate, recent high school graduate. You could be 40 years old. We had a student that came in at 45 and was part of our college promise. 2 years free, as long as they meet the 12 unit count requirement and submit their application, they're accepted. They get a laptop, they get guided, special guidance for the students throughout the 2 years, support through the process. That we even have cohorted classes. What this means is that the students are taking courses together with groups and they're going along the journey together. Great way for our students. I myself was an ELAC student and did that same process, and it helped me out tremendously. What you see below is also our semesters. This is we are year round. We have classes every term of the year. So our students are able to come in at the time that fits their schedule and their needs, and we'll be able to offer courses for them. What you see below, register.elac.edu, is where we're at. Let us know You click on there and then it'll guide you through all the processes on how to register at ELAC and get the services. Next slide, please. And as you know, we have been facing some challenging times with the pandemic and transitions and whatnot. We have support services for our students. We really want to be mindful of our students and how they are, where they're at, and meet them there. And providing housing needs. If our students are having housing challenges, we have support with local partners that provide guidance and steps on how to be admitted into a shelter or other opportunities. Technology, as mentioned before, students had a challenging time logging on, so we were able to provide them laptops, hotspots, areas on campus that were still open for the community to come in and utilize. Transportation, we have tap cards, which is a free bus pass for a student to make their way to either our Southgate campus or Monterey Park campus. Food insecurity is a big challenge for us. A lot of our students, have shared that they at times go hungry. So we have done our best to provide resources for our students to come in and get a snack or get on a weekly basis food so they can supplement. Physical and mental health is important for our students and for us as well. We have on campus, we have a partnership with UCLA that provides guidance for students. It's a peer-to-peer support system that we have. In addition, we do have a great partnership with Via Care that is on our campus, and again, providing support services for our students. And beyond the employment support, we always offer jobs for students. We always ask if they're interested in working on campus, if they're interested in working off campus. We have a career and job services or AJCC centers on campus that provide support for students. And beyond that, we have fiscal support needs for students through financial aid and other means that our students can benefit to ensure that when they come to school, they're not worried about all the others. They're worried just about their education. And that's what is important, giving them the foundation to be solid so they can come in and be great students. Next slide, please. And we do serve a diverse community at East Los Angeles College and welcome everyone. We have our one zone area. We have our LGBTQ center to support students, Safe Zone, which really embraces the welcoming environment to ELAC. The Dream Resource Center, question, if I'm undocumented, can I go to school? The answer is yes. Come and see us, we'll provide you information. Umoja, helping our African-American students in regards to additional supports, but also helping our students on campus and in embracing our multiculturalism. And Ed Justice Rising Scholars. If a student is what we call justice impacted, is there a place for them in college? Yes. And again, we have a program for them to provide additional support. Again, and really taking a holistic approach to education and for our students in the community. And with this, I'll pass it off to Dean Mayorga. Next slide.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us today. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the Southgate Educational Center. So for those of you who aren't aware, we're on Firestone and Alameda in Southgate. As of 2021, we became center status, which is great for us. That means we get an allocated funding just for the Southgate campus, which will allow us to provide more courses and more services to the community. One of the other great things we have is VP Eden has mentioned, we do have short-term courses and accelerated programs. We continue to work with our local high schools and want to build on our Escalante program in the Southgate community or the Southeast community, and also building our non-credit partnerships and those programs. So at the Southgate Educational Center, we offer credit and non-credit courses. And though it's for transfer or not for transfer, as we mentioned, some students want to do a career technical education pathway. So we focus on certificates such as allied health, administration of justice, fire tech, business, and child, family, and educational services. Next slide, please. We're really excited and want to get the word out that we are building across the street a new building, $85 million gorgeous building. We expect to be ready spring of 2024. It's 105 square feet. It's going to be able to provide so many more classes, and we're going to focus a lot on the allied health programs. And I know that in some cases, students have asked why we don't have currently science labs at the Southgate campus. So with this new facility, we'll have state-of-the-art computer labs, state-of-the-art labs for our science courses. And we'll have all the resources we technically would have at the Monterey Park campus, as we do continue to have those at the Southgate campus. Remember, during the summer, we're open Monday through Thursday from 7:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. So feel free to stop by anytime. And on Fridays, we're open 7:30 to 4:30. Thank you so much. That concludes my portion of the slide.
Next slide, please. Yes, so again, Mayor Pulido, esteemed members of the council, City Manager Kelly, thank you so much for this opportunity to share a little bit about our college. We're here to serve you. We're here to serve our community, the city of Bell Gardens, and of course, the residents. This partnership with you is very important to us. As you know, we have a lot of history in this community of serving our students, or serving our community in general. And we want to continue that partnership with you because it's important, as we have a mutual interest here to uplift our communities through quality education, of course, through all the services that you provide. So with that, again, thank you so much. It was an honor to be here. Happy to answer any questions if you have any. Other than that, that indeed concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you so much for the presentation. Coincidentally, my little sister will be starting her semester this fall at ELAC. Yeah, we're very excited because after she graduated from high school, she didn't have any intent to go to college. And after a year or so of kind of working and trying to figure herself out, she realized that she does want to pursue further education. So she picked ELAC. So right now we're teaching her how to drive, so she'll get there safely. But thank you so much for the presentation and for the resources that you're bringing to our community.
It was our pleasure. Thank you again. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Polito. The next item is a presentation to recognize July 2022 as Parks Make Life Better Month. I'd ask if we can have the proclamation read, and then after that, if we can turn it over to Recreation Community Services Director Nava to talk a little bit more, and also to recognize this awesome looking group of employees that we have participating on WebEx. Thank you, Mayor.
And I would like to ask our Mayor Pro Tem if he can help me read the proclamation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. City of Bell Gardens proclamation. A proclamation in honor of Parks Make Life Better Month. Whereas Parks and Recreation promotes physical, emotional, and mental health and wellness through organized and self-directed fitness, play, and activity. And whereas Parks and Recreation supports the economic vitality of communities by partnering with local businesses and nonprofits and offering events for residents' engagement. And whereas Parks and Recreation creates memorable experience through youth sports and enrichment activities, teen center and programs, senior activity centers, adult fitness and enrichment programs, free community events, and beyond. And whereas Parks and Recreation fosters social cohesiveness in communities by celebrating diversity, providing spaces to come together peacefully, modeling compassion, promoting social equity, connecting social networks, and ensuring all people have access to its benefits. And whereas Parks and Recreation supports human development and endless learning opportunities that foster social, intellectual, physical, and emotional health in people of all ages and abilities. And whereas Parks and Recreation strengthens community identity by providing facilities and services that reflect and celebrate community character, heritage, culture, history, aesthetics, and landscape. And whereas Parks and Recreation facilitates community problem and issue resolution by providing safe spaces to come together peacefully and serving as key point of service, helping our communities heal both physically and emotionally. And whereas Parks and Recreation supports safe, vibrant, attractive, progressive communities that make life better through positive alternatives offered in their recreational opportunities. And whereas Parks and Recreation remains versatile and innovative in providing vital services to communities through local, national, or global emergencies, all while adhering to guidelines set forth by governing agencies. And finally, whereas the California Parks and Recreation Society has released a statewide public awareness campaign, quote, Parks Make Life Better, to inform citizens of the many benefits of utilizing parks, facilities, programs, and services. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Maria Pulido, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, with the Bell Gardens City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of July as, quote, Parks Make Life Better Month in Bell Gardens, and recognize the importance of access to local parks, trails, open space, and facilities for the health, wellness, development, inspiration, and safety of all Californians. Proclaim this 27th day of June 2022, signed Mayor Maria Pulido.
Thank you so much. Any comments from my colleagues?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words. Hello, guys, can you hear me? All right, cool. Well, as a lifelong recreation leader that has worked all the way from Recreation Leader 1, going up to administrative specialist and now on the council, I want to say that I'm very proud of you guys. Parks make life better, but they make life better because of you. Because you guys are out there doing the hard work. I know how challenging it is. I know how much more we need to reward you for what you do. I know that there's people that are overqualified for those positions, people that have graduated from universities with their bachelor's degrees, some with even master's degrees. And I know that it's tough out there, but you guys make a huge difference in our community. And I wish, and it is my mission to make sure that we continue to reward you guys as much as we can for all of the wonderful things that you do for our community. What I want to ask of you is to continue doing what you're doing because it makes a huge difference. Continue to get to know your community, continue to know the struggles. You know, we have 1/3 of the population living under the poverty line. We have about 1/3 of the population with pre-diabetes. There is an obesity epidemic here in Bell Gardens that has never been resolved. It's something that I had been fighting ever since I was a recreation leader by getting grants and now continuing to support programs that you guys are on the ground carrying out in our community. So I really, really value you guys. I really appreciate you and I commend you for all the hard work that you do. You guys are heroes and you guys are what makes parks possible in our communities, and parks do make life better. So thank you guys for everything that you do, really.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Absolutely. Parks make life better. Where do I start with this recognition and per se our own very own Parks and Recreation Department and Community Services, should I add, and all the crew that really goes above and beyond to ensuring that our community has the best experience when it comes to services, when it comes to the events, award ceremonies, sports, recreation, and across various other resources, services that they provide to our community. To all the staff, to everybody that's in this department, that assists this department across all levels throughout the city. We appreciate all of you. You all have been, and we're outside when this pandemic was at its peak, whether that was literally putting food in the trunks of cars for our residents, or assisting healthcare providers and giving direction and also providing locations for our mental health professionals when we partnered up to provide vaccines for our community. Just truly appreciate every single one of you, starting from the recreation leaders, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to coordinators, supervisors, and our new director, Elizabeth Nava. So again, I just, words can't describe how much I appreciate all of you and the amount of work and services you provide to our community. And it really shows. You know, our community loves to be outside. We love to be in our green spaces, our parks, and you know, being at a park, it's a holistic experience in the sense that at least growing up in a city where there is a lack of green space, not just within our community but throughout the region, being able to be there, and especially us that we have the privilege that we have a pond, you know, whether that's the fishing derby at the end of the year or the summer concerts and movies. Being in a space where we're surrounded by the green, it's a holistic experience, and I truly love it. And I can assure you that all of our residents love going to the park. So yeah, just again, thank you so much for everything you do. It never goes unnoticed, and let's keep pushing forward. So again, thank you.
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I think, well, my colleagues said it already, but I just like to concur with all of them and just say how amazing all of you are. And during the pandemic, you all took the forefront of our city. and you really brought some amazing programs, and you fed our children, and you stepped up to the plate. And for that, we are grateful, and we know that you continue to put out programming, and just when we don't think you can come up with something new, you do. So we're immensely grateful for every single one of you, and we'll continue to fight for all of our staff here in the city of Bell Gardens, because thanks to all of you, our city is amazing. And we've been able to accomplish so much in the last 4 years that we've been in office, but it's all thanks to the doors, which is all of you guys. So just from the bottom of my heart, immensely grateful for all the work that you put in, all the energy, all the time that you invest in our city. And we love all of you.
Councilwoman Flores?
I'd like to say a lot of things, but I don't think I'll be able to get much across, but I will say just my colleague said it all, and I feel we all share the same sentiment, because we implement policy up here, but nothing can be done if you guys are not out there in the field putting in the work. So thank you so much, guys. And there's so many of you that I've seen grow, and I'm so proud of you, and I can't wait to see what you guys are gonna do. Sorry, my son's sick, my family's sick, but I'll see you guys later.
And for me, I just want to add that I haven't worked in the department. My background is in healthcare, but I do acknowledge that having all of the resources that we have in our parks and our green space are super important to make the life of our residents better. Sometimes our residents don't have the additional income to go out, let's say, to see a movie or pay for entertainment, but we do have our parks with programs available, and you all make it so fun for our kids, our families to feel included and to feel that they are getting a full experience and that they are rich within our community and having all these resources, especially now that the summer is coming in with the programs. You're making the weekends exciting, the evenings exciting. Thank you so much for your dedication, your energy. You're doing a great job, and you have an amazing leader. And I think that also is the reason why our programs are so great. I will turn it around to Mike.
I will ask Director Nava to talk a little bit about the staff and to give us some more information. And then just from a personal perspective, just say thanks and recognize the Recreation Community Services Department. They're out there working, whether it's 98 degrees or 62 degrees. They're hardworking. I see them setting things up, tearing things down. Nobody's over their shoulder telling them what to do. They're just getting it done. So I for sure am appreciative on a personal, professional perspective. So thanks directly from me, but I'll turn it over to Director Nava at this time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. O'Kelly, and thank you, Mayor Polito and members of the City Council. That proclamation really hit the nose on the head, describing this department, and I'm beyond humbled to receive such support from you all, and I know I speak on behalf of my team, that they feel the same. You guys have been amazing, but this group of individuals are passionate and truly care for the Bell Gardens community. And I've celebrated 15 Park Makes Life Better months, and this one by far takes the cake, just being part of such an incredible and amazing team. When I came on board in February, I came in with guns blazing and had a lot of high demands on this team, and they responded and hit it out of the park. And I'm just so grateful for this team. They're talented, they're hardworking, they're great customer servants, they're eager to learn and grow and develop, and just are all around amazing people to be around. And I can't express how grateful I am to the council and to my team. You guys are awesome. You guys have become like family to me. You've heard me say it before. There's a sign in the back, I can't read it. I've heard, you guys have heard me say it before, that we see each other more than we see our own families sometime. And you guys have all made it such a wonderful place to be, and something I look forward to coming to every day. And I love working alongside all of you, and I hope you all know truly how I feel. I've tried to express it to you all, and I just can't wait to see all the awesome things that we'll do together. So thank you all very much.
We will now move to the next item on the agenda. Public participation is now open for items listed on the agenda. City Clerk, will you please announce the instructions for public participation?
Yes, Mayor. There are no written comments submitted. The members of the public will now have the opportunity to speak on items listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the City Council. Each speaker and written comment is limited to 3 minutes. Written comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by pressing *9. When instructed, press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. I'll begin with the first speaker. And there's 3 individuals, but nobody has raised their hand. So that concludes public comment.
If there's no objection by the City Council, I will close public participation.
There was one, just raise your hand.
One just raised their hand.
Okay.
Host, can you please unmute 2021, please? Hello? Yes, are you there?
¿Aló?
Yeah, hi. You can go ahead and state your
Bueno.
comments.
Sí, hola. Sí, soy Silvia Villeda.
Sí.
Vivo aquí en la ciudad de Bell Gardens por 20 años. Y me da mucho gusto ver que están regresando los eventos que antes hacían porque ayudan mucho para la salud, el bailar convivir con la gente de aquí de la ciudad. Y pues estoy muy contenta nada más saber cuándo abren la alberca también. Y también quería hacer un comentario respecto a la es que vengo manejando sorry. También respecto a lo de las rentas, que ya no las suban los dueños, porque aunque saben que están la renta congelada por 90 días, la gente sigue quejándose de las rentas, que las están aumentando, y mucha gente no lo sabe.
¿Es todo, señora? Señora.
Que nos apoyen para que ya no suban las rentas por fijo. No sé si sea comentario de lo que tengamos que hacer ahora, pero pues parece que sí está respondiendo el concilio y estoy muy contenta. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, señora. Veronica Cisneros.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead with your comments.
Hi, yeah, this is Veronica Cisneros. I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, but the one prior to that one, I think it was Ms. Flores. She had mentioned something about the sign that's in front of it, Picante, where Florence and Florence Place meet. Okay, I was driving by and noticed that, I'm not sure, I think something's wrong with the sign because I think it may be already too old and there's like a gap. And I don't know who would be in charge of that. Yes.
Señora, estamos hablando cosas que están en la agenda. Ahorita no necesitas que esperar cuando hablamos.
Until when?
Items not on the agenda.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Okay.
then. No problem. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem.
That concludes public comments.
If there's no objection by the city council, I will close public participation. City manager, will you please give your report?
Thank you, Mayor Polito. I've got a couple of items here to report. So just want to acknowledge last Thursday, June 23rd, we experienced a significant weather event here in Bell Gardens. I'm sure everybody felt the lightning and thunder. It had an acute impact on City Hall. It looks like a lightning strike or maybe several strikes hit at or near City Hall at around 4:20 a.m. It caused various electronic devices to malfunction. So servers, phone switches, 911, the motor that controls the gate at the police department, and also looks to be the culprit for a 10 to 12 foot rupture in a 12-inch wide water main out in front of City Hall. So a lot of work, but I'm just proud to say and thank the staff that operations were minimally impacted, considering the level of catastrophe that was going on. And it was fire alarms, no restrooms, portable restrooms, things of that nature. And we didn't close City Hall. We continued operating. We just moved forward and addressed the issues as they came to us. And I think by around 2 p.m., everything was pretty much back to normal while cleanup was still continuing with switches and things. So just like to acknowledge all of the departments, but I really want to give a special recognition to our Public Works Department and our Director, Grisel Chavez, our contractors, our employees, because I think the level of catastrophe that hit us that day, many organizations, whether for-profit, nonprofit, government, would have went ahead and closed down for the day. It would have been easy to just send everybody home and say it's too hard to work today, and that's not what happened. So thanks to all of the staff members who persevered and got the job done. So I just would like to acknowledge all the staff, but especially the Public Works Department and Grisel Chavez. We're still cleaning up, but I think everything will be back to 100% here shortly. Also like to mention on events, this coming Saturday is a big Saturday for us. This will be the first time after a 2-year hiatus that we have an Independence Day event. This will start at 5 p.m. at Veterans Park. We'll have a farmer's market that starts at 5 p.m. So this will be the first farmer's market that we've had. This is an item that's been brought up in the entire 3 years that I've been here by various council members. And this is really a pilot project. We want to see how this farmer's market does, and it may be something that we can expand into the future. And then aside from the farmer's market is the normal Independence Day type activities. So live music, games, crafts, and a multimedia show. This will be the first Independence Day celebration since fireworks have been banned in the city of Bell Gardens. Before I move on to the last item, just a reminder regarding the fireworks. We have signage up on our electronic billboard on the 710 that reminds residents, visitors, stakeholders that fireworks are illegal in Bell Gardens. We do this jointly with the city of Bell, who also has the same regulations. So what we've done is partnered with them on the electronic billboard that's on the south end of Bell Gardens. It says City of Bell and City of Bell Gardens, no fireworks allowed. And then the City of Bell reciprocates, which they've done for a couple of years very kindly, to also present the same message. So if people are coming in on a southbound on the 710, they'll also see the same message. And it's also congruent with both cities that have similar names and may confuse people. So it's very clear that fireworks are not allowed. We're also putting out social media. We will have banners out if they're not already out. And so a big weekend coming up. There's also a pet vaccine clinic that day at 1 p.m. also at Veterans Park. The last item I want to mention are just 3 items regarding staff members. First, we have, if you look on your queue of people here, we've got a Mr. Stephen Jones. I want to announce Mr. Stephen Jones. He's our new city planner. He's got 22 years of experience in Southern California with the counties of LA, Riverside, and several other municipalities. He's replacing a position that was long time held by Carmen Morales that everybody knows and loves, who has retired and is here helping us a little bit with the transition. Mr. Jones has earned his BS from UCLA and an MPA from Cal State Northridge. So very qualified individual. I spent some time talking with him last week. Super nice guy. And I didn't realize this until now, but I'm also very proud to announce that Stephen's a Marine Corps veteran. So I think that comes along with all of the discipline and politeness that comes along with such experience. So thank you and welcome to Mr. Stephen Jones. And incoming, so excited for Mr. Jones. And then there are two announcements that I would like to make that we are less excited about. So our city clerk, Jane Halstead, as most of us, if not all of us know, has accepted a position significantly closer to home with the city of Moreno Valley as their city clerk. Jane's going to be missed. Jane is right there in the category, if you describe a hard worker, all the things that come along with saying, wow, they're a hard worker, that's Jane. In early, out late, working really hard. Any kind of, anything you throw at Jane, Jane overcomes it just through hard work, compassion. One of the most polite people I've ever met in the face of impolite situations even. So just would like to acknowledge and say thank you to Jane for her years of service here with the city of Bell Gardens and wish her luck in the city of Moreno Valley and closer to home. I'd also like to mention that we have our neighborhood watch coordinator, Mary Lou Trevis, has decided to retire after 19 years of service with the city for a number of reasons. And so would like to thank Mary Lou for her service. And I think at a later date, we may be able to do some other things to recognize her, but she's has issues that she's handling at home currently. And so we want to be respectful of that. And with that, I thank you, Mayor Polito.
City Manager, Madam Mayor, I have a question. For the 4th of July celebration that you mentioned in your report, I just want to ask if there is going to be a laser show. I know you mentioned multimedia show, but I've been getting questions about what exactly that's going to entail. Are there going to be lasers involved?
Go ahead, Director Nava.
Yes, thank you, Mr. O'Kelly. Good evening, Councilman Barcena. Yes, there will be laser components to the show, but it won't be the main focus. It'll be in addition to everything else that's going on. They're doing a really cool thing where we're able to take footage and photos from the day of the event and incorporate it into our multimedia show, which includes lighting, lasers, fog machines, different type of exciting things. I don't want to give too much away, but so our community will see themselves up on the big screen during the show. So we encourage people to get there early and participate so they can see themselves on the screen. But yes, there will be a laser component, but it's not specifically like a laser show that you might be imagining.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. We will now move to the consent calendar. Does any member of the City Council wish to pull an item for separate discussion? May I have a motion to approve items number 1 to 10?
So moved, Cortez.
I'll go ahead and second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Cortez and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Chavez. City Clerk, will you please conduct roll call vote?
Yes, Mayor. Council members Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Yes.
Flores. Flores,
Jane, I believe Mayor or Councilmember Flores has left the meeting. We can look back at the time to reflect when she said goodbye as part of the commentary that she gave earlier.
okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Chavez
Yes.
and Mayor Polito.
Yes. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 11?
Thanks again, Mayor Polito. So this item is the adoption of the fiscal year 22-23 operating and capital improvement budget. This item was discussed about 2 weeks or exactly 2 weeks ago at the last council meeting. As I stated at that council meeting, this budget is very close to a status quo budget from the previous year. We didn't have any new major revenue sources. Our casino revenue is back to stable. We're seeing our first year of the new sales tax that was approved by the voters of Bell Gardens. And we're seeing that we don't have COVID revenue anymore. But beyond that, on a general basis, I'd describe it as a status quo budget, but there are some changes that we talked about at the last meeting, and there were a few additional changes that were requested by council at the last meeting regarding positions and also regarding an educational effort with the community to come at a later date. So we've incorporated those changes into the budget process and into this adoption request here. And with that, I will turn it over to our Administrative Services Director, Manuel Carrillo, to go back through the information that we provided at the last meeting to also give you updates on the direction that was provided by council at that time. So I'll turn it over to Manuel at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Before we begin, can everyone hear me okay? Wonderful. Thank you so much. So this evening, we'll be providing an overview of the proposed operating and capital improvement budget, along with the compensation plan and the establishment of the GAN appropriations limit for the upcoming 22-23 fiscal year. This is, of course, a follow-up to the overview provided by staff during our June 13th council meeting. This provides update information, factoring in council recommendations, as well as other needs that have been developed upon further review. Just want to make sure we have the correct, oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So here we have a brief summary of some of the key highlights that have impacted our budget analysis and preparation. The Bicycle Casino experienced no closures during the current 21-22 fiscal year. Our 21-22 mid-year projection went from 6.6 million to expected surplus of 6.3 million at year end. The city received its portions of ARP funds in 2021 and will be receiving its 21-22 allocation this month. We are projecting a budget surplus of 34,000 for the upcoming 22-23 fiscal year, and the water fund continues to run a deficit. So, excuse me. Sorry, my apologies. One moment, please. Okay, as indicated, the original adopted surplus was 7.2 million. The mid-year projection was an adjustment to 6.6, and the year-end projection is expected to come in at 6.3 million. This slide is a continuation of the previous and provides a detailed breakdown by line item of the 21-22 adopted mid-year and year-end revenue projections. Here we have an overview of the projected fund balance. As we can see, at 6/30/21, the fund balance is identified at 22.4 million, with the expected surplus we're at 6/30/22 of 6.3 million. The fund balance is expected to reach 28.7 million. Okay, and as here we have an overview of the I'm sorry, my apologies, wrong point. Here we're projecting revenues of 22-23 to come in at 38.3 million, expenses to be 38.7 million, with a projected surplus of 34,000.
And Manuel, before you move on that slide, if you look at this as a percentage of the budget, you're looking at a very tight, almost a zero exactly balanced budget. And I just want to assure the council and anybody listening that both sides of this equation are really analyzed and looked at a detailed perspective, individual of each other. So before we do a comparison of the two, and this is done, at a detailed level by staff, and then also in multiple hours of reviews by myself with our accounting manager and our admin services director. And it's not amazing, but it's always interesting that when you see an organization that is preparing budgets and seeing their actual results being very comparable to what was expected and where adjustments are being made, you'll see a very tight correlation between the revenues and the expenditures. And somebody might look at this and say, well, you just wanted to come up with a balanced budget and you probably came up with your expenditures and then came up with a revenue number. And that's not the case at all. I can assure you they're developed independently. And I think what this is, if everything is running the way it's supposed to be run from a services or planned services and resources perspective, you should see numbers like this, and that's what we see. So I just state this as a finance person. It's always very exciting for me to see the results of all that analysis and effort from the council, the residents, down to the department heads and the staff, and see budgets that look this tight and are what's considered a balanced budget. Thanks, Manuel.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. This pie chart provides a visual of the proposed 22-23 general fund revenues by source. One quick point of reference is that in the chart below pertaining to the bicycle casino revenue, as you can see, there is a trend developing in which the bicycle casino revenue is becoming an overall smaller portion of the city's general revenue. Of course, this indicates a trend of a greater diversification of revenue sources.
Manuel, just I think, sorry,
Yes.
I keep stopping you there, and I apologize, council. I just want to make a few points here. This is no accident. This is through, I'd say the last 12 months to 36 to 48 months with a purposeful eye towards diversifying the revenues of the city. As Manuel mentioned, sometimes we're even quoting the number as the bicycle casino is approximately 50% of the general fund revenues. And you see a few years back, that was pretty close, especially when you include the lease agreement that we have. But you'll see that piece of the pie is starting to shrink, while at the same time, the actual dollars from the revenue are increasing. And so it's just proof of the diversification that Manuel has stated. And that is something that's been purposeful from direction from the council over the last several years. And so you should take pride in seeing that direction bear fruit in this manner.
Quick question, if I may. I noticed that motor vehicles in lieu, I believe, is 14.39%. Is that in regards to like the registrations of cars, or can you add me a little more information about the 14.39%?
Manuel, do you want to take that, or
Would you like to cover it?
Sure.
Would you like to cover it?
So the motor vehicle in lieu is basically a flip of revenue that the state did multiple years back. I believe they took property tax and in exchange for the property tax provided motor vehicle fee instead. And so in California, this number's increased. I think if we were to look back several years, it's probably been pretty flat, maybe a slight increase, but one that we don't have really any kind of control over.
Thank you.
I have another question, Madam Mayor, if I may. The question is, and it's okay if you guys don't have the data now, but what would you say has been the sector that has shown the most growth in the last 4 or 5 years from the other ones apart from the bicycle club?
Councilmember Barcena, but aside from the bicycle club, obviously the sales tax. So the council directed staff to put a measure on the ballot about a year and a half, 2 years ago, to ensure that the city was collecting, maximizing the sales tax that could be collected before any other agencies potentially came in and took that revenue for other services that the city wouldn't have a say. So obviously that's, I think obviously the largest increase is the percentage of the sales tax. And then also, I think if we were to look at the base of the sales tax, the economy is booming. So when you see CPI increases of 8%, that means the cost of goods, and not exactly correlated, but is up 8% as well. So if people buy the same amount of things, you should see your sales tax increase roughly proportionate to that. So if the cost of a pair of pants goes up 8% because inflation goes up 8%, the sales tax on those pants would be 8% as well. And then I'd also just mention, even as we had a business owner, Miss Roca, on earlier, and even a nod to Prime Store and the large retail establishments. So the small side of things and the large retail establishments that we have in the city. The base, I believe, has also been growing as well. So it's not just the percentage of the sales tax, but the actual base and the volume of sales as well. And we're looking forward to, there's some large, one large space in particular that should be coming online that should produce additional economic activity, which generally throws off additional sales tax to the city at the former Toys R Us site. There's another national chain restaurant that should be coming in somewhere in the next year that would also increase, it's a fast food, increase the sales tax as well. So short answer is sales tax, some property tax because values are up, but we get such a small portion of the property tax that it's not as significant to the city. But the area that we really look at is obviously the tax revenue from the bicycle club and from the sales tax as well. Probably the next thing I think, and just to as a reminder, I mentioned the electronic billboard earlier as far as notifying, talking about the fireworks. That billboard takes city property and turns it into general fund revenue. And I would argue that in a way that provides information to residents, stakeholders, people that are even just driving through Bell Gardens. There's a billboard that's providing information there. I mean, some of it sells economic activity. Some of it's recognizing the city for its 60th anniversary. And other times it's also just providing good information that people might not otherwise see. So I think coming from the council's direction to diversify, staff has looked at many different avenues to generate additional revenue funds for the benefit of the city and therefore for the benefits of the residents and the businesses and stakeholders in town. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Here we have a continuation of the previous slide, and this is a breakdown of the projected revenue sources for fiscal year 22-23. As you can see, we're expecting increases in the major categories. Revenue is expected to decline overall from the previous year, but this is directly correlated to the fact that we were not receiving any ARPA funds in 22-23, and we are expected to see a decline in state relief program revenue for 22-23. This graph shows a percentage breakdown of the revenue categories. As we can see, the top 6 revenue sources make up approximately 87% of the city's total revenue. Here we have a graph that identifies some of the historical ranges in casino revenue in recent history. Here we have a breakdown by expenditure type for the proposed general fund budget for fiscal year 22-23. As we can see, personnel services and contractual services make up approximately 89.5% of the total general fund expenditures. On this slide, we see the increases identified within the personnel category. We are expecting significant increases to salaries and CalPERS retirement contributions as a result of the labor agreement MOUs, which entered into effect in fiscal year 21-22 and will again continue in 22-23. Here we have a breakdown of the proposed full-time positions by department for fiscal year 22-23. We will provide greater detail on this shortly. Here we have a breakdown of the proposed overtime by department. We are expecting an overall decline in overtime in 22-23. For fiscal year 22-23, we are proposing the reclassification of a few positions as well as the creation of one new one and the reinstatement
Just testing here. Can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
You still can't hear me?
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
That was odd. Okay. Thank you. Of course, the two, oh, I'm sorry. It looks like there was an issue with the internet for just a moment. And the reinstatement of 2 police officer positions per council direction at our June 13th meeting. Within the city clerk department, the following reclassifications are proposed. Of course, we have the secretary reclassification to a deputy city clerk. We have the account clerk 1 reclassification to a secretary, the clerk typist reclassification to a passport clerk, and the creation of a new office assistant position within the city clerk's office. Within the public works department, we have the reclassification of an admin specialist to a management analyst. Within the city manager's office, the reclassification of a senior management analyst to a assistant to the city manager. And as indicated, the reinstatement of 2 police officer positions, which were previously defunded in prior years. The overall fiscal impact of these proposed reclassifications and new position would be an increase of approximately $364,000 in salary and benefits. Here we have an overview of the contractual services area of the general fund expenditures. This category is expected to be 9.4 million, or about 24.2% of the overall expenditure budget. The major increase in this category is the city's risk management general liability insurance costs, which went up approximately $500,000 from the previous year. Here we have an overview of the department supplies area, which is expected to come in just a little bit over 3,000 from the previous year. Here we have an overview of the transfers out. This category is expected to see an increase primarily due to operational subsidies and retiree health costs. Oh, I apologize. I was on the wrong slide. Didn't move in time. I'm sorry. Can we just go back? Capital outlays. My apologies. I skipped one. So here we have an overview of the capital outlays. Now, although we see an increase in purchases such as software, equipment, and infrastructure investments, this category is expected to see an overall decrease of $70,000. And we covered the transfers out portion just previously. And here we have an overview of the city's overall total debt as of 6/30/2021. Just a point of clarification, the reason this reflects a 6/30/21 date is because this is as a result of per the audited financial statements that the city has. Of course, the majority of this debt is as a result of the city's net pension liability and its retiree health liabilities. Here we have a pie chart which provides a percentage allocation breakdown of the general fund expenditures by department.
Manuel, just for clarification, I think
Yes.
for 1920, unless there's some sort of anomaly that you want to explain, I think the 33% I automatically look at the police department expenditure since the largest piece here. The 33% number, I think, doesn't seem accurate unless there's some numerical anomaly in that fiscal year. But for comparative purposes, I would say let's not look at that number because I don't think it gives a good comparison there.
Okay. And here we have a continuation of the previous slide. Of course, general fund expenditures are projected to be up by 3.7 million in 22-23. This is primarily driven by personnel cost increases as a result of the new labor MOUs and the subsequent associated costs such as CalPERS and healthcare expenses.
If I may, I have a question. If you
Yes,
don't,
yes.
you don't mind going to the previous slide?
Sure.
I just wanted to ask for the police line where it says 2 police officers added at 253,000. Is that already added to the increase decrease column? So what I mean to say is the 1.3 million already reflecting the additional 253,000?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So as part of the city's budget preparation and adoption process for fiscal year 21-22, Council approved the creation of an enhanced community stakeholders participation tool in the form of a community stakeholders priority survey. The main purpose of the survey was to determine stakeholders' priorities that may be considered to begin the 21-22 budget process. In 22-23, the budget continues to focus on the top 5 as follows.
And Manuel, just before you go over, if I could just give some context here. So we're coming up on some slides where we're trying to address some of the conversation that we had at the last council meeting. And so I'd asked Manuel to do, without remembering specifically, was to go back and look at the slides that we had from 21-22. And since we did not do a new community stakeholder participation tool, let's compare the 22-23 budget to what our top five items were to see if they still lined up or not. To be honest, right off the top of my head, I was not sure exactly how they still lined up. And as I look at the list, I'm reminded of what they were. And I think I would acknowledge in any kind of participation tool or survey that we have that is giving you one point of view. It's not supposed to be the end all be all point of view, but it gives you one point of view. And so we took the liberty last year, and admittedly taking the liberty this year of kind of comparing the results of that to where we're spending money to see if they line up. They seem to line up still similarly, but I don't want to put too much emphasis on this because I just want to acknowledge that that first column is from a participation tool that's about 14 months old. It's from FY 21-22. But we thought that there was still a valuable exercise to compare that to where their resources are currently being spent. Go ahead, Manuel. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And of course, as the top 5 were identified, of course, as crime prevention, affordable housing, the city financial stability, as well as the community recreation and community social services. Here we have some additional categories identified as part of the direct mail survey submittal. Of course, commercial development, code enforcement were some of the categories. And here we have, can you hear me? I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Here we have some additional categories identified. I'm sorry. Here we have some other items that were identified on the priority survey, but were not top 5 items. However, these items continue to be a focus for the city and its residents. During the proposed budget presentation on June 13th, Council discussed the desire for city staff to hold an educational forum session on the overall budget process for the Bell Gardens community and stakeholders. Below is a tentative schedule for the education forum. Now, this includes the process of formulating the presentation, conducting a marketing and outreach campaign to attract attention for the event, and a tentative date for the educational forum itself. Of course, feedback that council might have, we could always look to see what would be a date that would work for everyone. But just to give an idea of the formulation, getting the word out there, as well as conducting the actual event itself. Here we have a listing of the various capital improvement projects throughout the city. This indicates the remaining budgeted carried over on existing projects from the previous year, as well as any new projects designated for the 22-23 fiscal year. Here we have an overview of the fiscal year 2023 proposed budget for all 35 city funds. This includes the general fund, as well as special revenue funds, capital project funds, enterprise, as well as successor agency funds. In total, the proposed expenditure budget for all 35 funds is $68.9 million.
Daniel, before we move on, I don't want to make a point on this. Sorry, Manuel, before we move on, thank you, Mayor Polito. I just want to make a point on this. There's a significant difference. The general fund is what we focus on, and we focus on that. We generally will call that discretionary expenditures. There's some argument in how discretionary some portions of it are, but generally speaking, discretionary. But I just want to put an emphasis on there's another $30 million worth of resources that are put forth through projects that are grant funded for the most part, or there is some dedicated funding source that may come from the state or from the county, from other agencies that are based on tax revenues that are derived from all of us, if it's a statewide revenue source. And I just think it's important to emphasize, this additional $30 million. And so, when somebody says, what is the budget of the city of Bell Gardens? I even have a tendency to say 35, 36, $38 million. And there is importance to that, to knowing what the general fund budget is. But I think I would just impress on everybody listening, stakeholders, council members, staff members, it's almost a $70 million budget. These are items that are coming to council. to put out RFPs, to execute contracts, to accept the work that was done. These are funds that provide food for residents, that provide grants for residents, that provide materials for sidewalks, curbs, streets, street lights, new trees, removing old dangerous trees, things of that nature. And so it's not a $39 million budget, it's an almost $70 million budget. So it's almost a double impact of what we, including myself, would otherwise call. Yeah, do you have a question specific?
Okay, sorry about that. Can you talk about the enterprise funds, water and golf, and the 2.9, close to $3 million on that?
Yeah, so I'll say a little bit and then I'll let Manuel add if he wants. So an enterprise fund is generally treated for accounting purposes. It's called that because it's like running a business enterprise. It's supposed to be run by a business. That's difficult to do for a political body, for government agencies sometimes, but that's the intent of it. And so what it means is that the revenues from this enterprise or the activity, in this case, providing clean drinking water or providing a golf course, a facility for people to recreate and to learn a skill and I guess communicate. The expenditures, generally speaking, should be covered by revenues. That should be the goal. And the council would recognize this from the water rate study that was done a couple of years ago in looking to see that that enterprise was not running in an optimal fashion, the way that you would run an enterprise. An enterprise generally is run to at least cover costs in the private sectors to make money as well too. In government agencies, oftentimes the money that's made is really just set aside to further improve the enterprise, build new infrastructure, make things nicer. And so we have two enterprise funds. It's the water fund that we've spoken a lot about, and there's a lot of effort by the council and leadership by the council in working to make that water fund solvent and long-term sustainable. And then there's the golf course. The golf course also is supposed to sustain itself so that the revenues cover the expenditure of the golf course. I'll tell you that most golf courses, at least the ones I've been involved in municipalities, at least over the last 5 to 8 years, it's become more and more difficult to maintain those types of facilities. And it's been the subject of a lot of discussion among the council here at the City of Bell Gardens. But so those are our two enterprise funds. They're intended to sustain themselves with their own revenues, and we strive to do that on both of them. I don't think currently we're succeeding on both of them, but these are projects that have come to council and that we continuously work on, and we're working towards a future where they are self-sustaining.
Thank you.
And finally, here we have an overview of the Water Utility Fund. By the end of the current 21-22 fiscal year, the water utility deficit is projected to increase by 1.3 million. By the end of fiscal year 22-23, the Water Utility Fund is expected to lose another 1.3 million. And by the end of 22-23, the Water Utility Fund is projected to owe the general fund $7.1 million.
Emmanuel, before we move on, just as the question that Mayor Pro Tem asked, this is a little more detail here, and those numbers sound bad right on the surface, losing $1 million. But I'd just like to remind the council and stakeholders that this is a known issue, and where we're at is we're taking a water system that has been run solvent for a number of years that due to conditions of the well, due to the drought environment, has fallen on hard times. And I think the city council can take pride in that what you're focusing right now is providing the cleanest water that's ever been provided to the residents that you serve, which is about 1/3 of the city. We understand there's a deficit and there is a cost to providing that level of clean water. The alternative is to provide other types of water that would cost a lot less, but may not be as desirable as the water that the council has decided to provide. And so we continue working through grants and working with our engineering firm to get our water well back online in the most cost-efficient manner, and also through things that are difficult, such as water rate increases to help cover the cost that it takes to provide clean water, and so that those costs are not spread across to a group of people that may not receive the benefit of that. And so We recognize that the water fund is losing money. We've done significant effort into shoring up the revenue side of things. We've purposely increased the expenditures to provide the cleanest water that there is available to the residents that we serve. And we project this to continue running in this scenario for a couple more years, but in a ever decreasing amount in the next 3 to 5 years. So this looks, again, the numbers when you hear losses, but this is purposeful in a manner that's making this water fund solvent for long-term viability.
Quick question on the water fund, and I know that there's been a lot of discussion in regards to the federal government providing grants, and I know our city's been on top of applying for those grants. Any idea how much dollar value, or if we were to receive, you know, a good chunk of funds for this, how much is at the table? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, so I'd say the first part, I'm going to ask our Public Works Director after I speak to clarify or correct anything or refine it. The first thing that we have that causes an imbalance here is the fact that we are providing water that is clean and is expensive. So it's not water that we're pumping from our only well that we have. The water that we pump from our well is significantly cheaper than the water that we're purchasing. So a significant amount of this deficit, I'd say about half of it, when you net off the water cost for surface water as compared to pumping water, would disappear if our well would produce water that's of a quality that we would like to serve to the customer. We're working diligently with our engineering firm before even looking for, as we're looking for grants, but we're working on our own to try to figure out ways to be able to pump clean water through potentially different levels in the strata. We're doing testing currently. We did a presentation about 2 to 3 months. And then beyond that, I'll let Grisel talk about the efforts that and who we're working with regarding future cleaning of the water. So if we were to bring the well back online and we get to a level that's better than what we were at, there are probably still cleaning that's necessary. And I know we're currently working with at least one agency, maybe more, for funding to help us in this endeavor. So our Public Works Director, if you could just clarify the additional funding that we're seeking.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. In answer to your question, Mayor Pro Tem Chavez, the city's engineering firm has been working with our contractor to be able to complete the analysis and testing of the constituents that are in our well water now. They're continuing that this week and the following week. So we're hoping by the middle of this summer, we'll be able to have the results on where the PFAS constituents lie, and if we'll be able to proceed with either modifying the well and be able to pump water at a different depth so that those constituents aren't detected in the water, and we'll be able to turn the water well back on. That's still about a year time frame out, unfortunately, due to the water board processes. Worst case, we would have to build a treatment plant essentially for PFAS at the same well site. That would again take a minimum about a year, and we'd be seeking funding through the state Division of Drinking Water, who currently has funded our planning and design of the well 1 pump station and reservoir. So we've already been communicating. They're aware of our issue that we had to turn the water off. Essentially, the pump hasn't been running since September. So it's promising that we'd be able to seek funding through that relationship with the state drinking water, or through a future DAC funding opportunities available through the federal infrastructure package. Thank you. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, water is key, and especially seeing as it's constantly taking a hit on our general fund. And just the idea that we're going to owe in 2022, 2023, 7.1 million. You know, at least in when I'm always meeting with federal officials or state officials, this is always a key priority of mine, addressing our water fund. And I know that there's monies out there. We've heard about the stories about Flint, Michigan, and their lack of clean access to drinking water. But I mean, I think it's the whole region and here in our community. So we need some of that funding to clean up our water system. And I'm glad that our council has taken initiative to continually provide. In this case, we were purchasing water, but it's better. It's the better alternative, ensuring that our community isn't drinking contaminated water. So one thing that I will point out, there's also this program, the Justice 40 executive order, I believe. It's something where certain resources or funds are allocated to disadvantaged communities. So I know that that's something that, you know, President Biden has always pushed for. But anyways, I'm gonna let the presentation go back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before we conclude our presentation, I'd like to once again thank our finance department staff for their extensive hours and effort in researching and calculating the budget information for this evening. Specifically, I'd like to thank our accounting manager, Remo Hansen, and our payroll technician, Mary Ceballos, for their efforts. It's a daunting task every year to formulate everything and put it together. And of course, their contributions are just invaluable to this process. It's amazing the work that they do. With that said, this concludes our presentation. I'd be more than glad to answer any questions the council might have. Thank you very much for your time.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Manuel and City Manager, thank you so much for this presentation. I think you guys are doing a great job with the budget. I did want to go back and visit a section of the presentation on page 27. I believe I found a slight typo or error, and I just want to make sure that I have the right numbers. If you guys don't mind turning to page 27. So the reason why I was asking in regards to the police allocation was because I remember that number from the previous presentation being about 1.3 million. As I'm running the numbers here on the calculator from column fiscal year 21 to 22, and I subtract that from the next column over, I'm not getting 1.3 million, I'm actually getting 1.6 million. So I suspect that that's probably just a field that maybe you guys forgot to update. I'll give you a second to just verify that. I think it's an easy fix.
Yeah, I believe that would be just a typo error.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clear that up. Go ahead, City Manager.
No, Amanda, do you mind muting? Sorry, it's coming through weird. No, you're correct, Councilmember Barson. And so I just want to make a point for everybody on the 22-23 proposed. The number there is the accurate number. The adopt is accurate. It's the calculation that we show to depict the difference, the change, the 1.363 million. I believe that number should really be about 1.6, 1.61, something like that million change. So the actual budget amount, I'm only making this key. So if you were to adopt the budget number's right, but the increase decrease number is showing lower than what it should low. I don't believe it's showing that 253,000. So I think Councilmember Barson is absolutely correct on this.
Thank you, Mike. And again, I just wanted to clarify that. And going back to the reason why I was looking at this item here, I know that there was a motion made and approved at the last meeting to increase the police budget by about $300,000. I'm sorry, I want to revise that. It's 250,000 for the 2 police positions, approximately. I know that the surplus was about 330,000 from our previous presentation. Now, the reason why I'm talking about that now is, as you guys all know, we have the rent control ad hoc going on right now, and given that we've seen some support from the council, I know that it hasn't been finalized or anything like that, but I was very happy to see that there was a surplus on the budget, because my expectation is that we might need to allocate some additional fundings either to the community development department or whatever department is responsible for handling anything new that comes from the ad hoc, which is, in my opinion, likely given the support that we've seen in the past. However, after the motion was made to allocate 250, that lump sum of that comes from the surplus of 330,000, I feel like it's somewhat depleted, and I understand that we can always go back and ask for reallocation throughout the year. I understand that that's a possibility, but I also want to be mindful of the great need that our community has shown over the past few months. And I would just want to make a request that if we can keep that in mind, what I would hate to see is if we get to the point where we need additional funding for, to help our residents in this crisis that we're seeing in our community. And at that point, the fact that we've depleted our surplus funds, I wouldn't like that to be a reason why we decide to not do it, right? I'm not saying that anyone's gonna do that, but I just wanna be cautious and I'm thinking ahead. So having said that, I have identified through our ad hoc committee in the last few meetings that some of the costs associated with what's being put together in the ordinance involve the funding of about 1.5 positions in the community development department, which would amount to approximately half of the $250,000. And I would like to just go ahead and make a motion to pull back a little bit from the funding of the 2 police positions to just do 1. That way we can have something still readily available. And of course, as always, we can always continue to modify that. So my motion is to bring it down to 1 additional police position. But I also have a question for the police chief. Chief, I understand that we've had challenges in the past when it comes to filling the positions that we have available already in the police department. Can you, if you know off the top of your head, can you tell me more or less how many vacant positions average are out there in our department that are vacant?
Yes, I believe that from actual police officers, we're at about 45, 2 of those being in the academy right now. We have 2 openings that will be happening here fairly quick with the retirement and a individual laddering out. So that'll be 2 more that we have, 2 more openings that we have. I hope that answers your question.
I'm sorry, I didn't do the math there, but does that mean that there's about 2 positions that are vacant?
We have, we're at 49 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're allotted 49 right now. I believe we have 45 filled, 2 of those being in the academy. So they're not actually on the streets. And then, so that would put us at, that's 45 right there. So we're down 3 officers right now, and probably go down 2 more here fairly quick.
Thank you, Chief. City Manager, do you have a better idea maybe what the average would be as far as having the vacancies in the police department? I know that. I was just asking the city manager if he's able to elaborate a little bit more on the average police positions that are vacant throughout the year.
Yes, Councilor, I think as the chief stated, there's about 4 true vacant positions, plus there's 2 more. So that's about, roughly 8% vacancy rate, give or take. Plus, as he stated, we have 2 officers that are in academy, so they're not on the street. So from a funding perspective, they're not vacant. From a actual service, they're vacant for those purposes. But I think the number's been anywhere from, in the time that I've been here, it seems like we've been floating around the 4 to 8 positions. And then just to make a note that the chief, I think, was trying to be concise in his answer. This is just for color, I guess, in the discussion. There are usually a number of officers that are out for medical reasons as well. But short answer, 4 true vacancies from a funding perspective currently, 2 more upcoming, and then 2 that we're funding but that aren't available for service.
Okay, and the reason why I was asking about that is just to provide a little bit more of an incentive to maybe leave a little bit of room for other, for the housing crisis item that we've been working with. I know that there's still a lot of room to fill those additional positions that we don't see today. So just want to put that out there for the council together with my motion for your consideration. Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget as presented. Who's not on mute? 2 weeks ago, I believe you're not on mute. Oh, there you go. 2 weeks ago, I presented this motion to unfreeze the 2 remaining officer positions. I've received numerous concerns around the community. With regards to public safety, as mentioned, there's always, employees who are sick and employees who lateral out. I want to have that opportunity to be able to hire those out. Of course, if we continue and we remain with vacancies, that will continue to allot as additional savings. But I do want to have that opportunity because those 2 positions were originally within the police department. It wasn't until we decided to defund that we froze them in a sense. With regards to rent control, yes, it is a very pressing issue. But even the numbers that we've determined with regards to rent board, our community doesn't want an employee-based rent board. They do want a full-blown community member rent board, which would cost us in the millions. So I think 250,000 would not make a dent. When it comes to allocating that cost, we're still going to have to find an additional revenue source or a different way to allocate those monies. But in the meantime, while we also figure out the rent control issue and the ordinance, I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. But I do think we can find the way to find the funding source once we do make those decisions. And in the meantime, approve the budget as is, given that the community is very concerned about safety, considering what just recently happened in Almani. I would hate that we continue to place our officers at risk, being at minimums. And I do want to provide that opportunity, not only our officers, but our community at risk at the same time. It's no secret that, we have a rise in crime, that we have, people who, to say the least, should be in jail or not in jail, or who are out committing crimes in our communities, and that current policies aren't helping the communities that they were designed to help. As a matter of fact, they're affecting us, and there's just an overall concern with regards to that as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to take time, and I appreciate my colleagues for bringing forward this discussion. It's something that I think after the last meeting, I started considering, for the fact that, our community, the rent control topic is definitely something that we constantly have been hearing for months, if not years. And I got a chance to talk to our city manager a little bit about when the time does come. It's when we approve a rent control ordinance in our community, as seen as we all support rent control. We've made it stated on the record. There's going to be cost to that, right? There's going to be cost to that. And how are we going to be prepared to deliver and have the social safety net employees or, information out to the public? There's only so much social media, the billboard, flyers per se can get the word out. In this case, for example, we've talked about rent freeze, and rent freeze has been a topic that we covered, that we supported, and that we passed in our city. But yet when I receive phone calls from our constituents, when they say that they're still receiving increases as we speak, I don't know if we've done a disservice in the sense that we haven't provided enough, or we haven't provided more of the statement that the city does have rent freeze, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but the point that I'm trying to make here is, what's the point of us passing rent control or a rent freeze if the community doesn't know about it, right? Perhaps having some sort of housing coordinator, housing liaison with the community outreach caseworker per se, right? And this worker will have a cost, right? They're going to be an employee of the city. This would obviously fall under community development. But I think those are things that we need to consider when we're going to move forward for rent control, right? So, I think this is something that we should definitely look at. I just want to get clarification though on the motion that Councilmember Barcena had mentioned. I think Councilmember Cortez's motion was pretty straightforward. Approve the budget as it is, correct? It's just Councilmember Barcena, can you clarify your motion as to? Yeah,
Sure.
Please.
Sure. The motion was just to dial back. Given that we have unfilled positions in the police department that are currently funded, right? About 4. And also given the fact that we know we're getting very close to the resolution of the rent control thing, I feel like we can dial back 1 position. You know, I'm just trying to compromise here. Not trying to be too aggressive by saying don't spend those $250,000. I'm just trying to find a middle ground, because even that 1 police position could yield enough to fund 1.5 positions that were mentioned to me by the Director of Community Development. And if Gus is on the meeting now, if you can please elaborate on what that 1.5 position would entail. I know that we are not at that point yet, but I do feel like having that backup, that buffer of funding can be very helpful in the next few months.
Sure, Councilman Barcena. What we have right now is we have a vacant or frozen economic development or economic analyst position. This position used to be responsible for doing a lot of public outreach for the businesses, but also for situations like this with like housing issues. We were looking to try to get that position back up, as well as a part-time position. But at this point, we weren't sure exactly if that was going to be part of this budget or if we had to wait till maybe the mid-year budget, because again, we're still dealing with the rent control ordinance. But that was the idea, is to have at least 1 full-time and part-time position to be able to handle things like this.
Thanks for the clarification, and that's the explanation, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. See, I wasn't aware that we actually had positions that were frozen in community development. I was aware of the frozen positions for PD from last year's budget. And I recall last year when we did approach the budget, I believe there was a motion. Initially, there was about 3 positions that were not funded, and then we came to a compromise where we allowed 1 of them to be funded. I think in this case, Councilmember Barcena's motion isn't aggressive in the sense that, we're still, in this case, PD would get 1 officer, and then our community development could also get the housing coordinator. Yeah, I think that's a healthy compromise. With that said, I would like to second Councilmember Barcena's motion.
My apologies. I wanted to make a few comments before we moved on to second. I'm trying to understand. I think that when we were talking about the board, the rent control board, we haven't agreed on having a board, right? Or having some kind of form of government that will oversee it. I think we're still in the stages where we're just discussing the possibilities and then budgeting for the board. I'm trying to understand who would want to live in a city with affordable housing where it's not safe to go outside. I know that we have some police officer positions that are vacant right now, and I'm very hopeful that in the future we will fill those positions, but I would want to see that we are able to bring back the police officers that we had in years past. We do have an increase in horrendous crimes in our community. It's not just crimes where a social worker can attend to a call or a case manager can divide a arguing couple. There are crimes that are happening in their state that are violent crimes, and they're terrible crimes. I mean, we had a rape of a, 17, 14-year-old that was visiting our community for a party. So we have these situations where our community is suffering, it's being attacked, and instead of focusing on filling the positions, we're just fixated on the fact that we have a few that are vacant. I think that we do need to work on filling those positions, but we need to fund what we need in order to protect our community. I am for affordable housing, and I'm still trying to understand the concept of the board that will be completely costly. I do believe that there's going to be a fee, right? A renter fee associated with it. So that would fund part of the board in the event that we do have it. So taking away from one department to fund the other goes back to what we were doing last year, and I don't understand it. Yeah, we have the funds to operate both. Not in support of jeopardizing our community safety. So having said that, City Clerk, can you please conduct roll call vote for Councilmember Barcena's motion?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. Roll call vote for Councilwoman Cortez motion.
Sorry, real quick. Oh, we need
Oh,
a
yeah,
second.
I second. Yeah, sorry.
Quick question.
I think you're muted.
Quick
Yes.
question. So this motion is just to approve the budget as it is.
Yes.
Okay.
So before I submit my vote, I just want to say that I think the budget was great when it was presented to the council. If you were to ask me, we could never spend enough on police, right? We can continue to fund and add additional police positions, and everyone's gonna feel more safe. But there are limited resources, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we put that money to use correctly. So as Mayor Pulido mentioned, there's been a rise in crime. Why do we have 4 police positions vacant? There are real reasons, and I believe that both the city manager and the chief can provide those positions on why these are vacant, these vacancies exist. They should not exist. We need to make sure that they are filled because there is a great need according to the council, according to the stats, and we need to do our job and make sure that those positions are filled, because if they were filled right now, we will be talking about bringing on 2 additional police officers on board. But as of now, if I'm not mistaken, we're talking about bringing in 6 additional police positions, right? So I just want to point that out. I understand that we want to make Bell Gardens safe, but I also think that it is our responsibility to make sure that we are making it a safe city within the budget, and that we're also paying attention to other crises, because there's not only crime in our city, there's also homelessness, there are also evictions, there are also a lot of violations of current laws upon our residents, and there are people suffering out there living in a really, really unacceptable environment. So we need to keep that in mind as well. And again, I'm gonna emphasize how thankful I am that the city put together a great budget, but unfortunately I cannot vote yes for this budget as it stands. I try my best to compromise, but I do have principles that I live by, and that's why I'm gonna vote no. No offense to staff, no offense to the city manager, but I feel very strongly about making sure that resources are distributed fairly to those in need in our community. That's a no.
My vote is going to be yes, and just in the same manner that Councilmember Barcena mentioned that we have vacancies in the police department. This vacancy wasn't filled for community development because there is no need for it yet. So until we create that need, it's also not wise to be funding that position. We still have a long way to go with regards to this rent ordinance, or at least with regards to the portion where we're going to need staff help or that additional position. Keep in mind that our schools are also at risk. You know, our MUSDPD, they don't really have a police department. So every single person that's responding to our schools is our Bell Gardens Police Department. And God forbid that something happens like it did in Texas. We don't want to place our students at risk. We want to have a full force to be able to provide for our community. And along the line, let's say, you know, halfway through the year, we pass this rent ordinance, we decide on a rent board, and those positions haven't been filled. I'm sure we can come to the table and ask the chief, you know, if that's something that he's going to be filling soon, and if not, if we can use that funding for that additional position. So my vote is a yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
This is a tough one. This is a very difficult one because on one hand, in the last council meeting, we had a motion to increase the 2 police officers into the budget. I was in support. But then after the meeting and after we had a discussion with city manager, I think it's something that we should have definitely considered. And that's something I didn't consider at the moment. But I do think that Councilman Barcena definitely makes a compelling case when it comes to, having a housing coordinator per se in the budget, at least to a bare minimum, at least funded. The fact that we do have 4 vacancies at the moment in PD. And I think that there's definitely some research or data that needs to be examined with the correlation between increase in crime and increase in funding for PD. And per se, I'd be interested in looking at that data. So I think all across counties, all across the nation, there's been an increase in crime. That hasn't just been in our community. I think there's been a lot of conversation when it comes to our DA and his ideology on tough on crime per se. But even then, we haven't even had a chance to hear directly from the office. So I think on this item, Councilmember Cortez mentioned a point about the need, right? I think right now, just briefly in the comments, I think per se, and respectfully, I disagree. I think that there is a need, right? I mentioned earlier that I'm getting calls about residents saying that their rent is being increased as we speak, right? I have text messages.
What I meant by the need is not that there's not a need in the community, is that there's no position to currently be funded for community development, and the city manager can maybe fill us in as to why community development didn't ask or request for these positions in the first place, or what ended up happening in that budget process.
Can the city manager elaborate a little bit, please?
Sure. So the reason that there's not this position, and this position has been discussed, I think, among Gus and myself, among the council members on the ad hoc, Councilmember Barcena for sure. And the understanding is, as we're working through new work, we're creating new work. We're creating an ordinance that doesn't exist before, that's got a lot of technical language in it. We will need additional resources. We generally will ask for those resources once the need is more specifically identifiable. And so I agree that if there were an ordinance passed a month from now, along with that ordinance would be a request for budget appropriation. A month from now, it may sound like we have the same information we have today. It's not the case. A month from now, we know a little bit more on how revenues are going to look. It's constantly a revised number, and I'm confident we'd be able to fund that position through various means. But the reason it was not included is because we're not at that point yet. Even if you notice the position that Gus mentions, was an economic development analyst. So that position really was never there for housing per se. It was there for services that we used to provide that we don't provide anymore on the economic development side of things, particularly when we hadn't a live economic redevelopment agency. So we recognize that we will need resources, most likely. I'm not sure if that's a month from now or 3 months from now. And so the idea was to not budget for that until we have a more clear picture of what those resources will be exactly, what are the right position titles, things of that nature. We could probably get 70% there currently with, as Gus stated, or even as Councilmember Barcena stated, we have a pretty good idea it's going to be 1.5 FTE. But the idea would be that we'd ask for that money at the time we're really getting to the point where something's been adopted. Just as I'm speaking, the budget, again, as I mentioned, $68 million budget. There's a lot of services, a lot of resources. We're down to, we're talking about $130,000 one way or the other. We're down to, into the decimal points of percentages. In an effort to, salvage these important resources, the financial stability of the city from perception from an internal and from an external view, and without speaking to the chief here, but I think in understanding what it is that we're looking for, understanding the reality of vacancy rates, if I could maybe suggest for the council to consider the approval of, this is off the top of my head, of one police officer position that we could immediately seek to recruit, with the understanding that if we can get to the point that we fill the vacant positions, that we, as soon as we're at that point, we come back to the council, and at that time we would ask for the second position to fill, at that point, having demonstrated that we were able to find qualified candidates that were suitable for the level of expectation that the chief and the department and the city would have. So I would just put that out there from the staff perspective. Considering the greater the greater importance of this budget that's being proposed. So it's something in the middle of the two motions that were there. So it would be a motion to increase one police officer position and include it in the motion to bring back to council the request for an additional position and funding at the point that it makes sense from a hiring position based on actual filled positions. That was more than the question that was asked, but in an effort to try to get this $68 million budget, I think that's something that the council should consider, please.
I'm not sure how that's a halfway point, Mike, but in between the two motions, on the reverse, I would prefer to continue with the two positions and at the halfway point, make that motion to move those monies to fund the community development positions.
Quick question on, city manager, let's just say, a month from now, we come back and we have rent control and we notice that we need funding for a housing coordinator per se, or the rent board or some sort of employee. Where will those funds come from?
So as I stated, a month into the budget, at that point, number one, we'd start looking for is there any funding source? Right off the top of my head, we may look at CDBG funding that's allocated to the aquatic center. Could that funding be moved from the aquatic center to help cover the cost differential for a housing coordinator? That would be a starting point. We would go back through the budget, kind of as we did as part of the budget process, and look from a priority perspective. Is there anything that was included in the budget that, considering where we are with the rent ordinance, is now a lower priority than it was prior to that ordinance being passed? So we would be diligent about reprioritizing. We'd come back to the council and we'd say, here's the position that we need, here's the cost for it, and here's where we're proposing to fund it. Ideally, we would not fund it out of the general fund balance. We would be attempting to fund it out of existing revenues or by reducing some other expenditures. I don't think that's something that I think we would be successful in being able to do that, but that would be the case. So if this budget were adopted, to Councilmember Cortez's point, if this budget were to be adopted the way that it stands now, an alternate proposal would be add the two positions, and then when it comes time where we've better defined the positions that we need for the housing coordinator and what the costs are, I think the counter, as she pointed out, would be to say at that point in time, if the PD positions aren't filled, that would be a potential funding source. We may say, hey, we're 4 months into the fiscal year budget. We had $30,000 already available. There are some vacancies in the police department that we haven't been able to fill the positions despite our rigorous efforts. And so the remaining funding for this year would come from vacancy rate that was greater than expected in the police department, along with potentially some other expenditure cuts for things that aren't as priority. So we would definitely make it happen, but there are 52 ways to look at that at the side of things. And I think I will share, just nobody's asking my personal opinion or professional opinion, but I'll share in kind of talking with the chief. I just think that the likelihood of the position in community development at the moment is probably greater over the next 4 months than it is our ability to fill every one of the police officer positions. And that's why I'm confident in either side of those motions that we'll be able to find the resources probably for both, for 2 police officer positions, filled or unfilled, and a position in community development. But obviously all that's predicated on having a budget that's adopted so we can move forward and still provide all these other services that that we're not even talking about right now.
Madam Mayor, I just want to add 2 more remarks very quickly, if I may. Over the past few meetings for the rent control ad hoc, we have experienced a slight shortage of staff. that is another thing that I want to point out. We were supposed to have a language for one of the ordinances 2 meetings ago, and we couldn't get that because of the shortage of community development staff. And we worked very hard. I worked very hard with the city manager to make sure that we had it at this last meeting. So that's another reality of it, right? I think, as Mike mentioned, there is a need there. So that's one angle. And then the other angle is I've been working with the community. There's some nonprofit organizations out there that are doing a lot of hard work explaining to residents that have been taken advantage of what their rights are. And I know that the Community Development Department does that to some extent, but I also know that they're heavily impacted currently. So I think additional manpower in that department is something that can really go a long way with the services in our city. So I want to just be as compelling as I can, that I feel that this will be money very well spent. And again, just trying to compromise. And this has nothing to do with any sort of like ego or like, I want it my way. Like, it's not that. It's just more that I've been here for the last few months. I've seen the need, and I want to make sure that I communicate it to you guys the best possible way. And hopefully we can come to an agreement. But thank you for listening.
I just have a question. How long does it take for us to hire an officer?
Usually to get them to where they're hired to either start their training program or go into the academy, it's anywhere between 3 to 6 months, probably closer to 6 months if we have nothing scheduled. So first of all, I want to say I truly appreciate the conversation in here and everybody's willingness to look at the 2 officers and positions that we lost a couple years ago, and the open conversation that we're having, because I think it's valuable. It takes a while to do that, and I don't want to put a time frame on when we need to hire those officers. We want to hire them as soon as possible. But we want to make sure we have the right people that we're hiring. We don't want to rush and just bring anybody in here to our community and to our police department. So we take our time and we're diligent. The additional spots, although they wouldn't be filled, more than likely would allow us to put more people in, expand our pool that we put into backgrounds, giving us a better opportunity to get individuals out of backgrounds and to learn more about more people. But if I only have 2 spots, I can only really put 2 people in backgrounds. And be fair to those individuals who are looking for a job. I could put 5 in, but it's not fair to them, because they would be passing up other opportunities to be employed. So when I'm able to put more people, because I have more spots into backgrounds, we're able to do a better process and get more people and hopefully more quality into that process. So I don't see us getting to full staffing in the next fiscal year if we're going to continue to be diligent. So there will be cost savings there, but it really allows us the opportunity to screen more applicants in a deeper process where we're actually putting them into backgrounds versus just in an interview process, if that helps answer the question. But 3 to 6 months is the earliest or the fastest we're going to be hired. 3 is really quick, and 6 probably more realistic.
Thank you.
If I may.
Sure.
I'm just going to go ahead and I appreciate everybody's dialogue and the conversation we're having about this. Very important. But I do want to go ahead and make a motion.
No, we're voting. So we were waiting on your vote. We haven't finished that vote.
Okay. Can we restate the motion?
It was your motion, wasn't it?
The motion was as recommended by staff to approve the budget, and there's an additional resolution as well. So items 1 and 2.
Is it my turn?
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez
That'll be a no.
and Mayor Polito.
Yes.
If I may, can I make a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion and go with city manager's recommendation to fund 1 PD position, and we leave money available for a housing coordinator. And we come back to ask for the rest of the funds if all the PD vacancies are filled.
This, for legal, isn't that just the first motion again, which we already voted on?
So the clarification for this motion is that if the first position is in fact filled, then we would come back to fill a second position. There was no mention of the second position for the first motion.
Wait, so hold on. So if I'm understanding that correctly, let's say we were to fill all the positions next month, then automatically we would open up the next one to be filled?
We would come back, bring it back to council automatically to approve for a second position.
I believe that's a healthy. Go ahead.
I was only going to say it could possibly be more specific to state that the positions inherently approved at that point were just coming back for council just to confirm the funding. So that may make it more specific, council, if the motion were to approve the budget as it stands, minus out one of the police officer positions, but included in a motion to immediately fill a second position if all the other ones are filled, and we would only come back at that point for additional funding, just to let the council know where the money's coming from.
And if I may, I believe that's a healthy compromise, per se, and it'll be automatically funded at that point. So thank you. So that's my motion.
I'll go ahead and second that motion.
Councilmember Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Again, city manager, I just want extra clarification, extra guarantees as to what this process is going to look like. Evidently, I don't trust the fact that we're going to bring this conversation back without the pressure of a budget needing to be approved. So how automatic is this for it to be open up to be filled?
So I think as long, and legal counsel can correct me here, I think as long as the motion is to adopt the budget as presented, but where there's only one police officer position, upon all of the police officer positions being filled, a second position is automatically authorized. At that time, we will just come back for the funding, but the position will be authorized. The police chief and the city manager will already have the authority to fill the position based on the way the motion is stated.
Okay, I want that super specified in the minutes, line by line, that it's an automatic authorization, and then it just comes for funding approval.
But what's the point of doing that? Just bringing the item back to another meeting?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think when it gets down to it, there's a lot of ways to cut this up. But I think it addresses all of the concerns that are being presented, in that it leaves money available for a housing coordinator position. It also recognizes that there's a need for a second police officer position, but it also recognizes that position is most likely not going to be filled in the next 3 to 6 months. And so it acknowledges all of these facts. And at the same time, it allows us flexibility. If we need to fill the housing position, that item's going to come to council. That has to come to council. It's not even included in the budget. So it's really got a lesser status than the police officer position, the way that I see it. The police officer position, if the motion is stated as I'm describing it, it's already authorized to fill. There's just not money available. The housing position, if there's going to even be one, doesn't have that privilege. We can't do that. We have to come back to council and have a more robust discussion than what we would have for the police officer position. So I would, the way that I see it is it's giving more priority specifically to filling the police officer position than it is to leaving funds available for a housing position, but more likely than not, there'll be money available for both. I also just want to give the council a strong sense of faith in, because the dollar amount we're talking on a percentage of the total budget, I'm confident that as 4 weeks into the fiscal year, we can give you even more of a solid idea of how we may be able to fund both of these positions within a balanced budget. I think 2 to 3 months is probably a more realistic timeframe, and we'll have an even better ability to describe how we can do that. Again, by cutting other expenditures where they may not be at this level of a priority, and by looking at our revenues. So I think the certainty here is that the motion would be read to say an additional police officer position is approved to be hired. We would hire so we would have approval to hire the position if we came to the council and then the council said, no, we're not allocating money for it. We would have already hired the position, and that would either just mean we have a deficit budget, or we would have to find other savings somewhere to cover it. But I would say it's obligating the city and giving the authority to the city and manager and the police chief to hire this position. If we get to that point where it makes sense to hire the position, based on the way this motion is, we're going to hire the position and we'll come to council for the funding. But that's the way that I see the authority being there. But I would say for practical purposes, I doubt it will come to that kind of a clear cut, hey, we already hired the position and we need authority, we need these specific dollar amounts. We would probably be able to fund it through other vacancies at that point, or through other cost savings or revenues. So I do believe that it gives a significant level of authority for the second position. It give the authority for us to hire a second position and just administratively come to council to ask for additional revenues, which we may not even need to do that. So I think it's very close to having a second having the second position included in the budget, but it's slightly not that. But I don't see, again, it's predicated on us filling all of these positions.
So just to reiterate, Chief of Police has automatic authority to hire out this position before it comes to council.
If that's the way the motion is specified, so budget's adopted with one additional police officer position and the city manager and or police chief, however it's written, have authority to hire the position, and after the fact come back to council to either request funding or to report on how we funded it. We may not even need to ask for funding. We may be able to just report to you the funding that we've secured through some other means, expenditure reductions, additional revenues, grants, something in that area.
So rather than voting on having a balanced budget now, we're proposing to potentially overhire and overspend on a second position. And then in the future, let's say in 6 months from now, we hire the second officer. And at that point, we scramble to get the funds to pay for that position instead of allocating the funds now.
That's always a potential. I would remind the council too that part of the budget presentation showed the fund balance. A balanced budget purely is what you're always striving for, but the reason you have the fund balance is also to cover priorities or needs that arise after the fact. It's your savings account, if you will, from a personal finance perspective. But assuming that until the point at which we were to come to council and talk about creating a housing coordinator position, even if until that happens, there's no way our budget would be unbalanced, because we'd have money available, could be for the housing coordinator. It would be available for that purpose. I think, as Councilmember Barcena said, it's not creating the position, but it's available for that purpose. But there'd be a competing authority that says, hey, if you filled all these other PD positions, fill that first. We would suck up the resources at that point for the police officer position, and we would be essentially at the status quo budget currently. But I think probabilities are going to tell us that we don't get to that point. I think to a very high degree, but it does give the priority to filling that position over leaving resources available without expressly committing those resources today.
And that's assuming that we vote on having the board and the housing coordinator.
Yes, so that's would still have to come to council. So we could fill the the second police officer position without coming back to council. If we were going to do something with a housing coordinator, we'd have to come back to council to create the FTE, create the position title, all of the details that go along with what a housing coordinator would do. So, it's still giving a priority to the police officer position when we need it, if we have the ability to fill it, while also in the interim leaving resources available if there's a need, in 4 months for a housing coordinator, and we're still 4 positions vacant on the PD. The council at that point would be able to make the decision on whether you create a housing coordinator and how do you want to fund it. Do you want to go into fund balance, or do you want to retract the ability to hire the second police officer position at that time as well?
But we already know it will take us about 6 months to hire a police officer, and we may need a housing coordinator in the next 2 months. Then we already know that by default, we'll need to take the funds from PD to fund that position, right? Because it's easier and faster to hire the housing coordinator than it is a police officer.
I think that's possible. I guess I can also just share if this helps from a building the budget perspective. So we obviously know rent control. If you look at the survey, it was item number 2 on there. It's a topic that we spend a significant amount of energy and effort into. We understand at some point in the near future, we may need to fund such a position. And so, we've got while it's not included in the budget, we've got ideas, contingencies on how to fund such a position. And so it is possible that we fill all the PD positions. This is possible, but I don't think it's probable. I think it's improbable. We fill all the police positions, including we have the opportunity to fill 2 more. We fill them, we use up all the budget, and then we'd have to come back to council and we'd say we need to create a position, and we either need to use fund balance for it, or we found other resources for it. I'm confident in our ability to find resources just because of the dollar amount as a percentage of our total budget. I think it's highly likely that if we were to have the improbable happen and fill all the police officer positions, I think we would still be able to find funding for this housing coordinator from a number of different sources. But short answer though, you're right, Mayor Polito. I mean, it's possible we fill the positions, we've used up the resources, and then we were to say, hey, we need a housing coordinator. There's no additional revenue, there's no expenditures. And at that point, our kind of parachute number 3 that we would throw would be, there's a $28 million fund balance, and we would potentially ask to dip into that to the tune of, 8 months of housing coordinator costs. And then we would figure out ongoing costs by looking at priorities for the following budget year. You did that, sorry.
Where were we?
Councilmember Cortez.
This is a difficult one. I do want to ask for staff to bring forward these budgeting concerns so that we're not just blindsided on the dais with regards to community development. It doesn't give me enough time to evaluate my alternatives and balance everything. It's too much of a rushed decision. I know the importance of passing a budget before July 1st. I'm not sure. It's just that there's that real concern that it's now going to be departments gunning to fill a position, and that's chaos that I definitely don't want to create between the city when the majority of council 4 votes to 1 approved these 2 positions last time. And given that one of our council members is not here due to illness, I just don't think it's an equitable conversation.
Councilmember Cortez, if I could just also make a comment. I think you heard me say, I think the council heard me say this at the last council meeting, and I believe this from a professional, personal perspective. The budget's a living, breathing document. It's revised almost every single council meeting. We need another 40,000 for some vehicle that broke down. That's a necessity. We've got a new grant for $200,000. And so, some form of adoption of this budget does not stop that from happening going forward into the future. So I think obviously in good faith, you want to adopt a budget that makes the most sense as individual council members. I understand that. But it is a living, breathing document, and a percentage increase in a certain revenue source, and we wouldn't have this discussion here. There'd be enough resources in the budget that we prepared to accommodate 2 positions, a second police officer position and a housing coordinator. A small percentage difference in revenue, and we would already be there. So I guess I'd just remind the council that it's a living, breathing document that changes as the economy changes, as expenditures change, and things of that nature.
How often do more police officer positions get added to a budget after it was approved? Let's say mid-year. How often does that happen?
I mean, historically here, I don't think we've done it as a mid-year item. Yeah.
Right.
And I would state, I think if the motion is worded, it's giving the authority to fill the position and to come back, and ask for funding if we haven't already found it through vacancies. If the vacancy rate in the police department exceeds what's already budgeted for the first 3 to 4 months, there will already be revenues available to fund the second officer position. It's that small of a percentage of our total general fund budget. I know there's principles involved here as well. I want to acknowledge that. But I think for practicality, we'll be able to accommodate any of these motions that are being made in a way that I think would be satisfactory to the council ultimately.
And I think, and I could be wrong, and I probably am, but I think that if our community and neighboring communities felt support to the police department, we would have more police officer candidates wanting to join our team. I think that we do express a ton of love to our Parks and Recs team, and you can see it. They get support from staff, council, from our residents, but I think the same level of support is not shown to our police department. And I mean, if we're not getting enough applicants, I can't blame them, because just sitting through this meeting, if I'm someone who wants to become police officer and join the city, seeing this conversation makes me not want to come here. I'd rather go to another city that gets more support, that appreciates police officers. And I mean, I don't know how this conversation is going to end. I can't say I'm not surprised, but it's very disappointing to see.
If I can maybe make another, so I'm going to drop into accounting finance mode here. Manuel, if you can remind me of the vacancy rate that we're using citywide. I don't think we're distinguishing between the departments on the vacancy rate. We're at 4%.
That's correct.
So one way to accomplish what we're trying to do is we could adopt the budget on a status quo basis, but revise the vacancy rate for the police department. We use a blanket 4% vacancy rate across the city, because you never know which departments are going to have a vacancy rate of 8%, 2%. And so it's an average that we use, and we adjust at mid-year or at the end of the year if necessary. I don't think it would be unreasonable for us to apply a vacancy rate percentage. It might be counter to why we're creating new positions, but for practical purposes, the fact that we're already at 4 vacant positions out of 49, we're already at an 8% vacancy rate. I think if we were to apply a 5 or 6% vacancy rate specifically to the police department, you could theoretically fund both police department positions, and you would still have approximately $130,000, $150,000 available to fund a housing coordinator position. Obviously, we'd need a budget adjustment if all the police positions were approved, but that is probably not likely. So, Manuel, I think if just rough numbers, salaries and benefits for the police department, roughly 11 or 12 million.
Allow me 1 second.
Okay. So I believe that number is going to bear out roughly, let's say 10 million to make it easy. if we assume the vacancy rate, there is something more like 5 or 6% which is probably realistic. Probably 6% is fair. 6% on 10 million, it'd be 2 extra percent, so it would be about $200,000. So there may be another motion that says adopt the budget as presented, but with a vacancy rate of 6% assumed for the police department. What that would mean is that our surplus would be, instead of being 30,000, would be approximately probably about 150,000. But salaries and benefits for the police department general fund manual is about 10 million to 12 million.
It is, allow me just 1 second, sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have the exact figure for PD on that, but let's see.
Total PD budget's about, is it 17 million?
Yes, that's correct. 17.3.
So the salaries and benefits are approximately 10 million. If we were to leave the budget as is, but internally revise our vacancy rate to 6% for the police department, that would save roughly $200,000 that would then be available if we were to come back to the council with a housing coordinator position. We'd look at the vacancy rate of PD and make sure that it was at least 6%, and there would at that point be more than enough funding for a housing coordinator position. So that would be another way to accomplish essentially the same thing, would be to adopt a status quo budget with a vacancy rate of 6% for the police department. And what that would mean is our budget surplus would be approximately $150,000, which would then leave funding. It would be probably a more realistic budget, and I think satisfy all of the concerns that I think are being shared by all of the council members. That could be a possible motion there as well. So it still creates the 2 positions, and it also leaves funding. It acknowledges the vacancy rate issue, and it also would be funding available for housing coordinator.
I believe the roll call was at my vote. In the interest of passing a budget, and because I appreciate staff putting in all this work, but I don't appreciate that we were blindsided with those additional positions. I believe this is a compromise that I can live with. But just to clarify for the community, when these positions were frozen or defunded in 2020, it wasn't because we needed the money for budget, or it wasn't because we had a budget that was faulty. It wasn't for monetary reasons in that sense. So with that said, I'll go ahead and vote yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
Can you state the motion, please? Or is this my motion?
This is the motion that you proposed.
Oh, that'll be yes.
And Mayor Polito.
Yes.
And just for staff clarity, can I make sure I understand that the motion was, Jane, do you mind muting?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. I just want to clarify that the motion that Mayor Pro Tem Chavez made was the budget that includes only 1 new police officer position, but in the event that we fill the current vacancies, we automatically will create the 2nd position and have the ability to fill it. And then we will just come to council to either report how we funded it, if we had funding already, or we will ask for additional funding at that time. If there's funding already available through other savings, we will just come back to council and report it. We won't even ask for additional funding. And that will leave monies in the interim available for any other housing needs. And we will immediately start to firm up potential funding sources outside of the general fund for such a housing coordinator position if we can find some grant funding that we may already have. But just clarity, that was much. Okay. Thank you.
City Manager, just quick clarification as well. There was a second recommendation for a second resolution. Was that part of the motion?
As I understand it, it was Mayor Pro Tem Chavez starting motion, which was approve one new police officer position, grant the city manager and police department, police chief authority to create and fill a second position if we filled the other positions, and then come back to council to report. And so I think on that first part of it is that I think that was the motion that I understood it, with no additional amendments, just one new police officer position, authority to create and fill a second new position if we have filled the other positions, and then come back to council to either ask for funding or to report ideally that we've already found funding. And I think also, as the mayor pointed out, there's a second item to be approved as well as part of this. If we could also get a motion on item number 2, which is just adopting a resolution for the GAN appropriations limits, just to show that we're not violating any state law by the level of expenditures that we're recommending.
Move to approve Cortez.
I'll second. Okay, go for it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Cortez, second by Councilmember Barcena. City Clerk, can you please call the roll call?
Councilmember Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
and Mayor Polito.
Yes. City Manager, would you please announce discussion item number 12?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Polito. This item is an annual item. We get a request from the League of California Cities for the council to designate a voting delegate and up to 2 alternates for the League of California Cities annual business meeting in September. At the last meeting, or at the last League of Cities conference, there was a delegate and 1 alternate, just for historical context. But you can go up to 2 alternates. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councilwoman Flores for this position.
I'll second your motion. City Clerk, can you please conduct a roll call vote?
Council members Barcena,
Yes.
Cortez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
and Mayor Polito.
Yes. Do we
Quick
need-
question on that, if I may. I don't know if anybody's checked in with Councilmember Flores, but do we know if she's even attending the conference?
Yes, she is.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Do we need to select the alternates now, or can that be discussed in a later time?
Ideally would be now, but I have to admit, I'm not sure what their deadline is. I believe that identifying alternates would be okay to do at a future council meeting. I'll confirm if we can plan on bringing back at the next meeting. We'll do that, and I'll confirm with the League of Cities that we can wait.
Before we, are there any nominations for alternate number 1? Or would you like to table it for the next meeting?
Let's go ahead and table, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor, just for clarification, the letter says nominations have to be done by September 2nd.
Thank you. Okay. We don't need to take roll for that, right? Table.
No, we will just bring the item back.
Okay. Public participation is now open for items not listed on the agenda. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Thank you, Mayor. We have
My
one.
apologies, actually. Can we take a 15-minute break and resume at 9?
Oh, wait.
Oh, wait. 9:08, please. Thank you.
Sorry. Timeless, we're ready to go?
Yes.
Thank you. Public participation is now open for items not listed on the agenda. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Thank you, Mayor. The members of there was one written comment that we received. The members of the public will now have the opportunity to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the mayor and council members. Each speaker and written comment is limited to 3 minutes. Written comments will be read out loud after all speakers have been heard. Anyone wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by pressing *9. When instructed, press *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. We'll begin with the first speaker, Veronica Cisneros.
Hi, this is Veronica Cisneros, resident of Bell Gardens for over 30 years. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just real quick, I know with the rent control and all that has been, you guys have been going back and forth with all that, and I understand the tenants' concern and whatnot, and the troubles, they're having to, with to pay their rent, and how their rents have been raised. So I get that, but also nobody has ever mentioned, what about the homeowners? My mother's a homeowner. We lost my father 2 years ago to COVID. So there's only one source of income. Also there's, expenditures that come with owning a home, as you all know. Property taxes go up every year. Homeowners insurance goes up every year. Also, she just had to replace her friend's house, the roofing. So that was about 15,000 plus maybe. So what about the homeowners? Nobody, is out, nobody's going out to bat for them. And I get the tenants and whatnot. And also I agree with, yes, hiring more officers to keep everybody safe, and obviously including you guys that don't live here but that work here in the city, because that's definitely, it's gone worse, as it's been mentioned before. And yes, the budget is not written in stone, and yes, we can go back and revise, and like Mr. O'Kelly was saying, you can make cuts from, I'm sure, a little bit in every department, or departments that are not so, where you don't have to, it's a do or die type of thing where you have to spend. You can always go back. It's like, what, like the saying goes, when the tough gets going, the going gets tough, the tough gets going. So I'm unemployed, and if I've been able to manage, because not working, because also I'm taking care of my mother, if I'm able to manage, I've been able to manage to stay home with my daughter, single parent, lost my husband as well. These people can also manage. There's always, why not help them out, help them, and let's sit down with, with families. Okay, what are you spending? What are you spending? Cut back on eating out, cut back on cable. My brother's got his house paid. He's working. He makes a decent salary, and he even cut back on cable. It's not a necessity. So I don't know. It's just very controversial. Everything is just, I understand one side, but then what about the homeowners? And what about us residents? Like I said, including you guys, our safety. So we do need more officers as well.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Thank you guys for everything. Thanks for listening to us.
Our next speaker is Maria Padilla. Maria, can you hear me? Yes. You have 3 minutes to state your comments. Maria? Yes, we can't hear you. No podemos oírte. ¿Me escuchan?
Yes.
Sí.
Bueno,
Comience
bueno,
con.
¿me escuchan?
Sí, ya la escuchamos, señora Padilla.
Bueno, ¿me escuchan?
Sí, ya la escuchamos.
Buenas noches. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Bueno,
Huh? Is Samantha
¿me
in there?
escuchan?
Sí la escuchamos, señora. Por favor, diga su comentario.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es María Patricia. Como comunidad estamos conscientes de la importancia de la seguridad de nuestra ciudad, pero también sabemos que la comunidad necesita apoyo para el desarrollo comunitario. Sabemos que el desarrollo social es la mejora del bienestar y el sustento de las personas que vivimos en las zonas más necesitadas. Buscamos ampliar el impacto y el beneficio social de la población. A nosotros ser incluidos en el presupuesto por más apoyo, lograremos mejorar la calidad de vida de nuestros familias. Una vez más, les pedimos apoyo esta necesidad por la cual ustedes trabajan y que está sufriendo por el exceso de costo de renta. Sé y estoy completamente segura de que cada uno de ustedes están conscientes de esta problemática. Será lo mejor por su comunidad que necesita ser escuchada, también tomada en cuenta. Muchísimas gracias por escucharme, por tomarme la participación. Que Dios los bendiga. Señora Padilla, ¿nos escucha? ¿No me escucharon? ¿Aló? Señora Padilla, ¿nos puede escuchar ahora? Ok. Buenas noches. Como comunidad estamos conscientes de la importancia de la seguridad de nuestra ciudad, pero también sabemos que la comunidad necesita el apoyo de un mejor desarrollo comunitario. El desarrollo social es la mejora del bienestar de personas más necesitadas y busca el impacto y beneficios. A nosotros ser incluidos en el presupuesto con más apoyo, lograremos mejorar la calidad de vida de nuestras familias. Una vez les pedimos su conciencia a favor de esta comunidad, por la cual están ustedes trabajando y que está sufriendo por el exceso del costo de la renta y una vida excesivamente cara.
Gracias, señora.
Y estoy convencida de que cada uno de ustedes están conscientes de esta problemática y que harán lo mejor por nosotros, su comunidad, que necesita ser escuchada.
Gracias, señora.
Gracias,
Let her go.
y confiamos en ustedes. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Okay, the next one is a written comment from John Mendez. My name is John Mendez. This is a non-agenda item. I am the owner of the Rustic and Chick Company, Rustic Rentals. We are located at 7535 Perry Road. I am addressing the council today because I need the city's help with a zoning issue. The city has charged me with a zoning code misdemeanor. I would like the city's help in getting the matter resolved without the courts getting involved. I am a new business owner and don't have a lot of experience in zoning laws. I would like to continue doing business in the city of Bell Gardens. I'm willing to take all necessary measures to ensure that my company is in compliance. If rezoning is what I need later to be done, I ask for the council's support. Thank you for your attention. Please advise. John Mendez, the Rustic and Chick Company. And that concludes public comments, Mayor.
If there's no objection by the city council, I will close public participation. We will now move to council member comments. Councilmember Barcena.
Thank you. I want to thank staff for your patience and for working with the council on coming up with a compromise for this budget. I appreciate all the hard work that you guys put forward for the city. I wanted to ask Gus, I know that we have the rent freeze is coming to an end soon. I just want to know, because some of the residents have been asking me about the rent freeze and if we're going to be bringing that to another council meeting. Do we have plans to agendize an extension to the rent freeze if needed?
Yes, my understanding from our city manager is that we're looking to place this on the agenda on July 11th. The sunset of the rent freeze is July 24th. So if the council takes action at the next meeting on July 11th to extend it, then we'll be good. And we'll have enough time to bring the ordinance to you, which we're anticipating end of July, beginning of August.
Thank you for that. So as part of my comment, I just want to say that we've been working very, very hard with our rent control ad hoc and staff to make sure that we have an ordinance ready for the council's consideration. And we also understand that the rent freeze that was scheduled to last 90 days is going to be coming to an end. So we are ready to have an option so that the council can delegate on if we are not able to have that ordinance voted on before the deadline of the 90-day freeze. We have the option there to vote as a council to extend the rent freeze farther. Something that I personally don't want to have to do, but we may have to do, as I mentioned earlier, due to the lack of some of the manpower in the community development department. But again, I want to thank staff, everyone involved in the rent control ad hoc has been doing a great job with the limited hours that we have. We've been making it happen. So thank you all for that. And those are my comments. I also want to say that I appreciate every employee from every department here in the city of Bell Gardens. I also think that one way to look how much we appreciate, for example, the police department, is simply to look at the way that we compensate them. The police department is 45%. Give me 1 second. Can somebody please mute somebody has their microphone on. Thank you. I want to say that, we can sit here and love employees all we want, but ultimately employees need to be rewarded for the services that they provide. The idea that we appreciate someone and they're gonna work for free is a very outdated idea. People need to pay their bills, pay for their rent. We need to compensate them fairly for the job that they do. And what better way to show our appreciation than to reward our employees with a good salary, with benefits. And our police department is no slouch in that area. We spend 45% of our budget, which is about, correct me if I'm wrong, city manager, but it's $17 million. Is that correct? So $17 million we spend on our police department, which is 45%, almost half of our entire city budget. And they're also one of our better paid employees. you know, if you go to another department, you may find some of the beginning positions getting paid close to minimum wage. Our police officers, they're professionals and they're equipped with skills that require a higher pay. So city manager, can you tell me about what the average police position pays?
Just off the top of my head, I mean, we've been talking about a brand new police officer, step one with salaries and benefits at being about 125 to 130,000.
Right.
So that's salaries and benefits. I'd venture a guess if we were to just do an average across the whole PD with the chief, the captain, you know, obviously it would be significantly more than that. I don't know if Manuel has an exact number. I'd say it's probably about, I'd probably assume about 180,000 or so.
That's about accurate.
Thank you. So as you heard what city manager say, our police officers get paid over $100,000, closer to $130,000. And that is, in my opinion, an effective way to compensate someone whose work is very valuable here in the community. So the notion that we don't appreciate certain employees enough is incorrect. And I beg to differ. I do believe that we appreciate our police department, and they play a vital role in the city of Bell Gardens. So just wanted to get that out of the way because there was insinuation there that some of us don't show appreciation for the officers, which is, I think, in my opinion, false. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer. So real quick, first off, I do want to say I appreciate everybody who commented. I appreciate the dialogue and conversation we had as a council. It was very productive, and I'm glad that we were able to come to a compromise and agree on the budget. Also, I want to thank a resident of Veronica Cisneros who tuned in and stayed for the meeting. Really appreciate her input on this. And she did make a valid point about homeowners or landowners in regards to potential relief or funds out there. I know that during the pandemic, or I should say as we still are in the pandemic, there was a lot of relief coming down from the state. We obviously know that our city partnered up with the state to do the rental relief program for residents across the region, but I'm curious to know if there's any sort of relief or funds available for homeowners as well during this time.
Gus, do you want to talk about that? We've had homeowner assistance back in the thick of COVID, but I don't think there's currently homeowners assistance that we're receiving from other government agencies. I'm not sure if you're aware of any at the state or federal level.
No, we went from helping out renters to the rental assistance program. We had our own program, and we also had the county's program that we were helping with. And then our Parks and Rec department was now able to help the state with the 211 program. But in terms of helping out homeowners, the only thing we do have is the Cal Home program, which provides residential rehab assistance. So property owners can get up to $75,000 to do repairs to their existing homes, as well as build accessory dwelling units. And that's still in play.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'd be interested to see if perhaps maybe in the future in our state legislature, if there's any conversation or support coming along in terms of assistance for landowners as well, or homeowners, as the comment came in from the resident. Sorry about that. I did want to make a point in regards to the comment that did come in from John Mendez from the Rustic Sheet. I was potentially going to ask if staff could perhaps maybe for our next item bring an informational item regarding and explaining the code zoning and the process for that at the moment. I don't think we've had anything in regards to zoning or code and how that works. I know that we have R1, R2, R3. We hear about single family zoning and commercial zoning, but I'm interested in seeing how that works. So potentially if for the next meeting we could have an informational item brought to us, it would be great. I was going to ask about rent freeze and rent control, but it seems like that's already in the works. And I'm glad to see that hopefully for the next meeting we will have the rent freeze brought back to us, as it's going to expire before then, before our second meeting in July. Finally, throughout last week, 2 weeks, I should say, I got to attend a variety of different activities and events throughout the city, or I should probably say the nation. On June 15th, I got to participate in the CELA 10th anniversary DACA anniversary, hosted by Southeast Leadership Network. I was outside Ross Hall. We had media present there, and I was joined along Councilmember Cortez, and it was a great experience for the fact that we got to hear from 3 recipients of DACA and the urgency for Congress to act on this item. For later that day, I attended the Battle of the Bands contest / staff training from our recreation staff. It was an amazing experience, and we got to see staff perform different 80s and 70s music and act as a team. It was impromptu, and they performed some of the greatest. And overall, I really enjoyed that event, and I know that our staff enjoyed working together and performing together. The next day, I attended my first ever meeting as a member of the Los Angeles County Solid Waste Management Committee / Integrated Waste Management Task Force. I was appointed by the LA County Division for Cal Cities. And at my first meeting, we discussed various legislation coming across the state and decided whether or not we were going to be in support or against certain bills. We also talked about the SB 1383, I believe, which is in regards to changes that are going to happen when it comes to trash and foods waste and whatnot. So that was another interesting piece that we talked about. Later that day, June 16th, I also attended the Small Fry Soccer Awards Night. It's crazy because I feel like these award ceremonies happen so quickly, but I remember I attended my first one last year, and now here we are attending my second one. So it goes by so quick. It was a great event, and it's always glad to see the parents come out and support their kids, their nieces, nephews, children, and students. Finally, June 23rd to 25th, got to attend an ALEL conference, National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials throughout the nation. It was held in Chicago. It was my first ever official conference, I should say, hosted by NALEL, and I loved every single moment of it. We had a great turnout. I got to attend various sessions across the spectrum, from mental health resources to isolation and substance abuse and needs from our communities. We also got to hear from the very Vice President, Kamala Harris, and the impact our community of Latino, Latina, Latinx community has across the nation. Overall, the conference was great, and I look forward to attending the next one. Finally, this upcoming weekend, we have our Independence Day celebration at Ford Park. It's going to have live music, multimedia show, games, and finally, the highly anticipated Farmers Market is finally here in our city. That's going to be, I believe, from 5 to 8. So I'm glad to see that that's finally going to be happening in our city, and I encourage everybody to attend. The program itself is going to be from 6 to 9, the Independence Day celebration, and I can't wait to see that in action. I do want to end on a note, seeing as last week we had a critical decision decided by our Supreme Court. Of course, I'm talking about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I want to ask staff to bring forward a council item for our next meeting, affirming support for people, specifically women, reproductive freedom. Essentially, I believe now more than ever, we need to stand with our people, specifically women, and we must do everything to support our community and declare our city a reproductive freedom city. I know some cities have done it across the region, including the cities of Salinas, city of Alhambra, I believe Pasadena as well. So if possible for the next city council, if you could bring such an item, a resolution declaring our city a reproductive freedom city. With that said, that concludes my comments. Thank you so much.
I just want to thank all of the staff. We had a really long meeting today. Thank you for everything you do. I do want to clarify when I mentioned that showing support to our police department, I'm not talking about money. It would be silly for me to think that showing support is only in the form of money. I mean, nobody will work for free. That's why we have labor negotiations every year. That's why we even offered and gave raises to our staff that are not part of a labor group. Our part-timers in Parks and Recs got a bump in their pay because we realized that expecting them to work for free is not realistic. I'm not sure if at your capacity as pool manager or whatever your role was, if you had any subordinates that you were managing, but anyone that has ever managed a staff member understands that showing support at an emotional level, saying compliments goes a long way, even when you're paying someone less than what they would expect. When you show that kind of support, a staff member will do anything for you. They will support you until the end. They will be your biggest trooper, and that's what I'm talking about. Just having that support from towards our police department, Parks and Recs, any of our staff members. We can't be throwing money at a problem or thinking that something will get fixed just because we're doing that. That's not the kind of support that I was talking about. Thank you again, all of you, for everything you do. It was a long meeting. It's a great meeting. We got our budget approved. Thank you for the compromise in doing so. And having said that, I will adjourn our meeting today at 9:42 p.m.